So the confidence, I don't think, I kind of get out on the pitch and know what my job is. I come with experience. It wasn't anyone that ever said it to me. I just one day thought, right, what do I want? I need to organise it because I've always done so much. I've always juggled. Probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago max, I started to realise this is how I work and this is what makes me tick, which is why I started. I knew that I needed other families because that was normal to me. Their family was normal, like the chaos of 5 kids all trying to get breakfast and get out of the house on time. I loved sitting there just watching them. And when I got back, so, you know, I'll say this because it won't be just my opinion, but the netball world is very ageist. And when you have an injury, people assume, especially ACL, which in my mind, I'm never going to play for Jamaican netball. They're better than England standard. I don't live in Jamaica. They'd never let foreigners into the squad either. So it was something that was really far out of reach again. And
Danielle, welcome to the Second Win Academy podcast show, all about career clarity. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, I am actually looking forward to our show because I think just from a sporting perspective, you're going to be really interesting to just understand what's going on in your world and going through your mind. But then also, as I've noticed, you have a heat press and all sorts of stuff next to you, which we're going to have to delve into as well.
Sure. Yeah. I have a lot going on, juggling a lot.
Yes. Yeah, juggling a lot. Well, and you know, hopefully a lot of balance in there as well. And so you feel things are somewhat working, she says, shaking her head.
Yeah, maybe. Balance is probably one thing I need to focus on that I never do, but you can be the judge of that.
Yes, yeah. Well, we'll step into that a little bit. Well, I guess for those watching, listening, and indeed for myself as well, it's always good to hear it. Can you give us the infomercial, give us the story. What are you up to about what you're doing nowadays? What are you balancing, I should say?
Okay, so I play 2 sports. I play netball at a high level still, really enjoy it. I've played since the age of 6. I also play rugby for Jamaica in both disciplines, 7s and 15s. I have 3 businesses. I have 2 online platforms. One's a personalised dog accessory brand and one is a personalised kids wear brand. And they sell online platforms. They sell through retailers. And on top of that, I also do business consulting, or I use the guise of business consulting. So when I left my full-time job, I decided to work, offer my skill set because I had a lot of offers to be hired full-time and I didn't want to do that because I wanted to juggle everything else. So I go into people's businesses and I do business transformation. So it can be anything from hiring, firing, training, coaching, strategy writing, restructuring, rebranding, anything really, cost savings, and then literally how do I grow my business, which I really, really enjoy. So I do that 2 days a week. But within that consultancy umbrella that I use, I also do motivational speaking, coaching workshops, and that can range from an actual coaching session for kids in rugby or a classroom base where we talk about leadership skill set or the skills I learned in sport, basically, that transition naturally into business and life. And that's kind of what I try and preach because I talk very much in sport analogies or sport terminology. But for me, that's why I was successful in business because I learned all of that from sport and that was all I knew. And I then chanced it in the business world and I think it really works. So yes, so I go to primary schools, secondary schools, corporate events. And, you know, I basically just fine tune those workshops and I'm always talking about the same thing. It's always resilience, leadership, communication, key factors in business and sport and schools that people want to talk about. So I just make it fun. Yeah. I involve netballs, rugby balls, a bit of fitness in there, force people into she says, I kind of manipulate a situation. So we play a game where they learn, they naturally will use leadership skills or communication skills, but in a fun format where they're not consciously thinking about it. And then when we go in the classroom, we kind of talk about what skills did we just use? And, they all think the managers are going to be the natural leaders, when actually you find some absolute gems in the other people who think they're just a customer service anyway. So I really enjoy that side of it as well. So yeah, business consulting, 2 businesses and 2 lots of sport in a nutshell.
That's it. So many things seem to come in twos for you there, and
Yeah.
that I can figure. I can get now why we're talking about, is it juggling, is it balancing? 2 sports, 2 businesses. But what you did mention there was, I guess, the consistency that runs through them are the types of skills. You said they're always resilience or
Yes.
leadership or perhaps problem solving. Um, did you know, when you started the businesses, did you recognize that those were skills that were relevant in the business place as well?
Yeah, for sure. I recognized them way before I went solo. So I've worked in like the hotel industry, the health and fitness industry, and went all the way up to sales director. I was acting managing director for a sportswear brand for quite a few years. Whilst how I look at things, how my brain works, sport is what I always wanted to be a full-time athlete, but both sports I've chosen or for the countries I've played for, it was always been non-funded. So it's always had to be, or how other people describe it, as a hobby. For me, it's the everything. And work was always secondary, and I probably just don't tell people that that's how I thought about it. So what I'm trying to say is, throughout my life, I'm well aware that that's where I felt most comfortable, but that's actually where I did the most growth. So, being dropped from teams, being not the best performer to being the best performer, and the pressures of that. I've gone through loads of cycles with that, and well aware that I learned how to be a good team player, how to work individually, how to do my own job, how to support someone else in doing their job, how to be resilient. All of those things I know I learned from sport. And then as soon as I go into a boardroom, to me, that's easy. Sitting in a room with loads of people and giving them an idea and backing yourself and, having confidence and then going, well, I'll go and try it. I've got a plan. But then knowing if plan A doesn't work, I have to find a way to fix it, because I do that on the netball court, I do that on the rugby pitch. So work for me, I'll say it is easy versus what I have to go through in sport. So every time I've challenged myself or tried to push forward for a promotion or whatever it had been, or that board meeting with these scary guys, it's never really been scary. I kind of get there and think, this is exciting. It's a new challenge, but I've got this because I can do that on the court or the pitch. I can definitely do this. So that's how my brain works.
Yeah, and you sounds like you're very comfortable. Suppose I can see that's how you brain, hear that's how your brain works, but physically, it sounds like you're just as comfortable on, well, I'll say any court or field, like you
Yeah.
are across the businesses, schoolroom to boardroom as well.
I go with yes in netball. So rugby, I've only been doing for the last 3 years. So the confidence, I don't think I kind of get out on the pitch and know what my job is. I come with experience of international playing. So when I play rugby now, I'm with 22-year-olds and really young girls. I say it like that because obviously I want to be that age, or I am that age. But yeah,
Me too. I'm with
yeah,
you.
yeah.
I'm with
Good, good. So when I'm out on the pitch, I'm well aware what my role is. They kind of look at me, I look in their eyes, and that fear when we're facing Canada or, these really well-structured teams. And I look at the girls and I can see straight away that they're better players than me, but they lose that confidence and the mindset that we had through training. And I know that I'm there to go, come on, girls, I'm not bothered, let's go. And I go with the confidence and they deliver the performance to a degree. Whereas in netball, you can put me probably, I'd say, almost any position and I'd confidently play it because I understand every single role, what it needs to do. I'm not saying I'm the best in every role. I'm better in some over others. But right now, I play in a local league for fun with girls that I'm close with socially. And the girl that runs it, she literally every week will one player down, or we've got a mishmash of players, and it will just be Danny will play keeper, Danny will play goal defence. They're not my first positions, but I'm like, yeah, I will, because I know what the job is. I know what I need to do, and you get on with it.
Yeah.
Competitive level, I'd only play
So,
my first and second position, really.
yeah.
But yeah,
But you've got that sense of adaptability, and also
yeah,
it sounds like, well, we can depend on you to put in a good shift
for
and
sure.
be that team player. So, whilst I want to go back, I am interested then in this. What gave you the confidence to believe you could go, well, Now maybe we should go back, but I want to. I definitely want to have this chat about
Yeah,
your belief to go from netball to rugby, and do that at an elite level
yeah,
because I'm curious about it, but I'm going to hold it. I'm going to say, right, I want to come back to it because I want to try and get this backstory a little bit more to see where sport came in for you. So what was sport for you when you were growing up? Were you doing, well, I have to assume you were doing about 50 different sports as you were growing up.
I did. I did throw myself into anything. So, I mean, people that know me will laugh or roll their eyes at this, but I'm a very energetic person. The one thing I sacrifice to fit everything in is sleep, probably, but I feel like I don't really need it. As I've got older, I do say things like, "Oh, I love my bed. I love sleep," and I've only found myself saying it recently. Whereas when I say that to other people, they're like, "Oh my God, I've been like that since the age of 14." Whereas I was always like, I wanted to be the first up in my household because I wanted to know what everyone else was doing. If someone else was up, I wanted to get up to see what was going on. I cannot miss out.
Yeah,
If my friends said they're going to be somewhere at 6 o'clock in the morning and we're all meant to be meeting at 9 o'clock, I probably wouldn't go as early as 6 o'clock, but I want to be one of the first there because I want to know why they're there early. What am I going to miss out on? So I've just
yeah.
always had lots of energy. So with regards to sport, I think my dad in particular would go, if it was his weekend as such to have us, he'd be like, right, I've got to take us, we're going to take her swimming with her friends because that'll wear her out. Or, on holiday, right, I'll take her down to the beach. I'll show her some mountains, tell her to start rock climbing or, crabbing we used to do a lot of, but he'd always have to give me something to keep me occupied because otherwise I'd
Mm,
sit next to you and I'd talk you to death or I'd be getting up and down, just full of
yeah.
energy. So I think my dad just was about variety. He'd throw me into everything. And he was very, very strict. So I feel like, I remember this beach day. We used to go to Wales a lot with dad, just dad only, and my brother. And I was really competitive with my brother. He's 18 months older than me, but naturally good at
Mm.
everything, naturally academic, naturally fast, sporty, just has everything and doesn't train. He's one of those. Or he was when
You're
we were
saying you're saying that with love, right? I mean,
Oh,
just
with love,
checking, but yeah.
yeah, through gritted teeth. So everything he did, I had to do or do better. And I feel like throughout our whole life, it was always a competition. So he would do something that was really easy, and I'd always be playing catch up. And those words used to come out of Dad's head. Oh, you are 18 months younger, and you are a girl, and you are young. All those things. And I used to be like, that's not going to hold me back, right? I've got to beat my brother, and that was always the first thing I think I was really competitive with.
Mm,
But yeah, this beach day. We just walked down to the beach with dad and a normal beach day, and there was loads of things, loads of activities going on. And there was this guy who was had drawn a bit of a track, not very long, was just saying by age group you pay 50p each person, and you literally raced each other. He obviously, I don't know who he was.
mm,
Like I think back now and think that must have just been a random guy trying to make cash. What a great business idea. But so we rocked up and we got there and it had already started. Like there were people queuing up. So we were just watching, and I was standing there and I was thinking, oh, I could beat her. So the first rate, I can beat her. Oh, I could beat that girl. And I was watching. So I thought I raced against my brother. So then me and my brother were talking, and my brother was like, oh, yeah, you could definitely beat her. So we're having the same conversation. So I was like, Dad, pay 50p, let me run. So he was like, well, let's see what race is next. And I must have been, I reckon I was probably 8, 9. I could have been younger.
mm.
And whatever it was the age group above that were about to go. So my dad was like,
Yeah.
I went to go, and he was like, no. He said, this isn't your age group. He said, you're only going to lose. So I kind of looked at him and I said, but if that's the case, Dad, my age group was the group before, so I've missed it. I said, just let me run. So he was like, okay. I remember him putting his hand in his pocket. He got the 50p out because he used to carry a lot of change. And I got in this line and I could see my brother, because that was the great thing. Me and my brother were really competitive and had to beat each other. So he wouldn't back me. But if I did something
Yeah.
that was against other people, he had my back. So I could see his face and he was sizing people up and he was like nodding, like he'd checked them all out. And in his opinion, I like looked at him and he was like, you've got this sort of thing. So that confidence was there. So I just remembered
Yeah.
going, literally waiting for him to say, he had a little gun pap. And off it banged, and I just started running, and I could feel these girls, and I thought, oh my God, this is way harder than I thought. And I was just pumping my leg, come on. And I ended up drawing with another girl, but that was okay because, at first I was really annoyed, but my brother went, she's older than you, so she should have smashed you. So that was amazing. High five. So I was thrilled. So it's just little things like that that I know Dad would just be like, and I was like, Dad, are you happy? And he bought us an ice cream. So to me, that was, I ticked a box.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's one scenario that I remember, because it was just the joy of winning, looking at my dad who was proud of me. It was all those moments that then got repeated in life that for some reason I remember that, and I don't even know why I remember it, but I just remember the joy, my brother having my back, my dad being proud and being rewarded with an ice cream. And it's kind of that feeling, that adrenaline feeling I go through all the time that I love.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. What even just how you describe it, it is all you've described what the beauty of sport is there.
Yeah,
Competing, being a bit of an underdog,
yeah,
being supported by family, loved ones, and getting a reward at the end. I mean,
that's true. Yeah,
you, you've just described it wonderfully. So
that's
that
it.
was
Yeah,
good.
I should be a
Yeah.
professional beach runner. Yeah, you're right.
That's it. What come to Oz? That's where you'll there's loads of people who do that in
Yeah,
Australia.
I
So
can imagine.
um, yeah. So for you then, so you that I mean that's a wonderful story because it sounds like it gives you that taste of sport, that taste of competing. And so as you continue to grow, you know, when did you? And I suppose I'm leading a little bit towards netball, but when did you start to realise I really enjoy netball?
Um, it was probably so how I started in netball. How the story goes, I was at primary school, and my brother was playing the trumpet. And again, don't forget he's older than me, so I wanted to play the trumpet because he did. So I went into this trumpet trial, and I only had one tooth at the time. I had one second tooth come through and not the other one. So I had this gap, and I don't know if it's true or whether the trumpet teacher didn't like me. Who knows? But my brother used to play up quite a lot, so he was naturally academic but was naughty. I had to work really hard and was the good kid. So that's how it was at school, with a bit of a mischievous edge. So he told me afterwards the trumpet teacher doesn't like me because I mess around and he wants me to play the trumpet, but I don't want to play. Whereas I wanted to play the trumpet and he didn't want me to play. Anyway, went into this trumpet lesson, did the trial, and my friends got in and I didn't as such. So I was devastated. So I came home and it was the one thing I was holding on to, crying about to my dad. And my dad used to just have this solutions driven, needs to fix everything all the time. So I just remember the next day he drove me to school and went into reception and spoke to the headmistress and said, okay, I don't care what instrument she plays, but we need to give her an instrument because you do realise that she'll go on about this. And because her brother does it, she needs something to stimulate. And, that was the conversation as I remember it. I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing. But so the teacher went, well, look, he's at full capacity. I'm aware that this happened because she was upset yesterday and spoke to me herself. We'll put her into violin. So I would have only been, 5 years old. This is where I remember this competitive edge. So yeah, we can put her into the violin, but violin started 3 weeks ago. So and my dad was like, it won't bother her, put her in, it's fine. Let's get her into those lessons. So I started playing the violin. And then I ended up being the best violin player. I absolutely loved that as well. Do you know what? I've waffled that much. What was the question? Getting into netball. So that was one scenario.
I'm just enjoying it. Keep going. So what were
Yeah.
you playing in the no,
Playing the
keep going,
violin.
netball.
I loved the
Yeah.
violin, and I was the best. Just so you know, that was a competition. Went into that lesson, and everyone could play "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," and I was like, I was brand new.
Yeah. Oh,
Everyone could do
yeah.
it.
Yeah, but at 5, I'm just guessing that anyway, I'm sure it was beautiful.
It was,
Yeah.
it was a anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that as well because I got there and I thought, right, because Dad was like, if you end up being rubbish, I'm not, you're coming out of it. It was kind of that threat. So I was like, I'll be fine. And when I got in there, it was like, how do you hold a violin? I don't, it's not like the trumpet that I was so down for and knew what I was doing. Anyway, violin was a long story short, but I ended up, I'd practice every single night. I'd wind my dad up because I'd be playing it every morning, every night, because I had to catch up with the other girls, but I soon overtook. Anyway, the moral of this story is my brother used to play football. He was in the football team, this kids squad at school, and I used to have to stay and wait. So Dad would never come and collect one of us without the other. So if he had something after school, I'd have to sit and watch and wait, and vice versa. So I used to always have to sit out in the field while all the boys played football, but none of my friends were there. So then the coach one time just was like, oh, get a ball, Danny, join in the skills session or whatever. So then I'd do that. Then I'd just be like, oh, can't I have a run around with them? I'll be on my brother's team. And he was like, yeah, why not? So I got involved in football and I started to enjoy it. And I don't remember the football enjoyment as much, but Dad reminds me of this. but it was my brother's thing. So my brother had got upset when he got home and said, listen, football's my thing, and now Danielle's been let and she's the only girl playing. It's not fair, blah, blah, blah. So Dad was like, I'll deal with it. Spoke to the coach, and the coach said, well, she's not hurting anyone. She's actually quite good. Let's keep her in for now, but she can't play any matches, which I didn't know. So then when the first match came along, I was devastated, and again, home crying to Dad, why can't I play the match? I'm better than this person. I'm scoring all the goals. So, then I overheard a conversation where they were talking about the fact she's a girl. Girls can't play football, because obviously I'm old and back in the day that was acceptable. Girls can't play football. She's also too young. She's, 2 years, academic years younger than her brother.
Yeah.
And I heard them having this debate. And then another teacher got involved again. This was like an early morning on the way to school, listening to all these really tall grown-ups. So then the teacher went, what about netball? So the problem is that I think I was 5'6", and we didn't start the sport until the next year, whatever academic year it was. So they were like, she can play netball. We can put her in. She can stay in the after club for netball if you want her to, but she won't be able to play matches until next year because she's not old enough. So Dad was like, yep, don't care. Put her in it. It'll just wear her out. It's good. So I got into netball, started playing netball. And one of the mums was the coach, who was ended up being one of my really close friends, because she had an older sister that I was playing with at the time, and then her younger sister was in my year, so she used to stay behind and get involved as well. But I was playing with this year ahead, and then it was the same mentality. Who's the best netball player here? She is. What does she do that I don't do? I'm going to copy. And then I got really competitive with it, because I thought, to me, these were who I were playing with. It didn't matter the age, or I definitely didn't think about it, in my opinion, and I just had to be better than them. And then this coach took me under her wing and started going, there's a tournament, will Danielle play? Let's bring her in. And I don't know how it happened with age, because I played a year ahead for a really long time. She kept taking me to more and more tournaments where I'd play with my friend's older sister because I was good enough. And for me, I feel like that pushed my ability and made me play better, especially when I went into my age group, because then to me it was easy. But yeah, so kind of the rest is history. I carried on playing from there. But yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, well, that's great. It's funny. I know for me, me getting into football was because I had to follow my big brother as well, 2 years older than me, and it was my mum, living with just my mum, but it was, well, if you want to do sport, you have to go with him. So I did, and I was again sort of dragged up the age groups because we were competing that year or 2 years up, and then suddenly you fall into your own age group, and for me it was like, God, this is just slower. I'm faster than him and him. Wow, I give a shoulder barge and they go flying. They're not bigger than. Wow, this is great.
Yeah,
then
exactly.
And then things went from strength to strength.
Yeah, that's how I feel, for sure. But it came.
So what?
Yeah, go on. Go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say, go on. When did you then? So when you dropped into your own age, around when was that? And when did you then realize you were going to be good?
That's such a good question, because unfortunately, I hate saying this out loud, because again, when I say this out loud to what I call a group of friends, and my other half always questions, are they friends if this is how they react? But there's a lot of jealousy in netball for sure. But when I'm in a group of friends and you're asking me, when did I realise I was good? I went in with an attitude of, I had to be the best, because what's the point in playing? Or, competing with my brother for so many years, everything I've done, I've always looked at, right, who's the best? How do I get as good as them? Otherwise, what's the point in playing? When you move into a setup where there's a first, second and third team, what's the point in playing if you're not in the first team, or you're not, everything you do is not to work to get into the first team? And I don't know where the mentality necessarily came from. The more I talk about this, the more I start discovering more about myself. But yeah, I still to this day, when you get involved in something, it's like, I hear this all the time. It's the taking part that matters, but straight away I'm like, okay, it's the taking part that matters, but I want to be in the first team. So how do I trial for the first team? It doesn't matter what people say to me. I've got to go for the best. And I am accepting of the fact sometimes I'm not the best. So you'll get put in the second or the third team, for example. But for me, it's like, well, my goal in that third team is to get to the first team. So what have I got to do? How long will it take? What have I got to do outside of it? And that whole process starts with work, jobs I've applied for, sport. So I don't think there was ever a moment where I started realizing I was good. I just always had to be in that top team, and it's age really that takes you, because you have to be a certain age to make England or the county squads or whatever. So it was always my age held me back, not my ability, in my opinion, and not my desire or anything. So yeah, I don't know if that answers.
And so then, as your age started to allow you to move into the reps and start competing then at a national, right, coming towards that elite level, where did you want netball to take you?
So at the age of 12, I started writing a goals list. I started to realise that I wanted stuff, and I guess subconsciously I used what I now consciously know as my process as such to get what I want. So I used to write myself a list of, I still do it to this day. I've got a list in front of me for today, but
Yeah.
I started writing
Tell me about this process. I'm curious.
This is where the weird, unique me comes in. But I used to, it wasn't anyone that ever said it to me. I just one day thought, right, what do I want? I need to organise it because I've always done so much. I've always juggled, going to see my friends, the swim stuff that Dad used to take me to, my actual sports, school, all these things, seeing the family, all those kind of things. So I used to I think for me, it was just a way of organising my own brain. So I used to sit down and write this goals list, and I used to say, by the end of this year, what do I want to, what do I need to tick off? And it was around 12. And I just significantly remember this one because I never let go of it until I made England. And on that list, it was, I wanted to play netball for England, and that was a goal. And that goal got further out of, further away as the years went on. And, but the desire for it got, what's the word, fiercer. Like my passion for it got hotter and hotter. I don't know how to describe it. I wanted it more and more. It grew. There we go. The further it got away in my mind, the more I wanted it, if that makes sense. So the more people kind of said, oh, you passed it, or as I got older, the more I thought, oh my God, I'm not taking it off the list. And this list I used to write, now I now call it a goals list, but this list I used to write, my promise to myself, I'd fold it up into a little square and I'd hide it under my bed, under the mattress. And at the end of the year, I knew what was on there because I'd memorize it. But at the end of the year, I'd take it out and I'd tick it off to say, right, done that.
So why did you put it under your mattress?
Because nobody else could see it. Because I didn't want anyone to make fun of it. I didn't really want anyone to tell me I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the things on there. I didn't want anyone to mock it. If you mocked it, I'd probably second guess it. Whereas this list I could write, it would stay up here and I'd never say it out loud, even though obviously everyone knew I would want, if anyone who knew me back then would have said, yeah, Danielle wants to play for netball for England, or people would know those things about me. So obviously I'd have to say it sometimes or talk about it, but I think for me, it was what I needed to achieve and what meant something to me and something I had to keep achieving and ticking off. It's that tick. And again, it's now I understand what my trigger is and what makes me push all out and go for these things that are unreachable, I guess. I kind of understand why I do that process. I had to achieve things each year to feel okay or to feel like I belonged. So anyway, wrote this list and ticked it off. And my promise is at the end of the year, if there's anything on that list that I didn't do anything proactive to get close to, I wasn't allowed to roll it over. So that used to hold me accountable. So, for example, if I want to make the England team and I know I wasn't going to make it till I was in my 20s or whatever, because that's how everyone else did it, I just had to make sure that I was playing at the top level, or I was getting feedback from a coach to say, you're going to be in the first team next year, or, to get in the first team, you have to achieve this. And I knew I was going back for a one-to-one to go, when will that happen? Or how will that happen? So if I could tick that box, or I'd put myself out to trial for a team that everyone was like, you can't trial for that team, you're not good enough. Well, I'm going to go and trial. Even if I don't think I'm going to make the squad, I'm going to trial because I know I'm going to learn. I'm going to see what the standard is. I'm going to learn what that best person that gets through can do. I'm going to work on that this year. So it was just things like that. So on that list, there was all sorts of things. There was things to do with, boys probably, everything to do in my life that I wanted to achieve. Whatever it was on that list. And like I said, if I was proactively working towards it, it was allowed to roll over to the next year, which the England netball thing every year I did. I rolled it over.
I mean, where did the inspiration for that process come from?
I wouldn't use the word inspiration. I think it's what I taught. It was like a survival for me. So this is what I struggled to talk about. So I do these motivational talks, And I went to a networking event once, started going to networking events. And when I went there, I knew that I'd be interesting because, you know, you have these printouts, or, you know, the first thing when you have, it's like speed dating, isn't it, in the networking world, where you have to meet someone and say, here's all the things I do, shall we talk to each other a bit more? So I knew I'd be interesting because, I played netball for England, and now I play rugby for Jamaica, you know, well, before that it was, and I've got these businesses, and I've been a managing director here. So I knew I had stuff that was interesting to say. And this was only a few years ago that I consciously started to, probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago max, I started to realize this is how I work and this is what makes me tick, which is why I started to share it, because I realized it's unique and it helps people. But when I was in these networking events, the next question was, you know, pretty much, what's your superpower? So I used to be like, you know, you'd laugh it off, and what do you mean? Well, what were you born with? Because I can't be an elite athlete in 2 sports. I can't run a business. I can't do this. And you've got a child, and la, you know, all this kind of stuff. How are you juggling it? Or you must have been born with something everyone else hasn't. And they're very serious about this. So after laughing for a moment, I was like, my response humbly and honestly was, I am just like you. If you wanted it as much as I did, I think that you could achieve it. You just got to work hard. But that started to become, I don't know whether it was patronizing or just a really dissatisfying response, because
dissatisfying. It's
dissatisfying.
Like, just hard work. No, come on. There's more. There's a superpower. There's something there.
There's something, and I'd think, what is it that they're waiting for me to say? Like, I kept thinking, what do other athletes say, or, you know, what do people in my position say to that response? And I always used to say, they used to be like, so you think I could do what you do? And I'd be like, yeah, if you want it bad enough, you could have it. And like I said, it would kind of be a conversation stopper, or they'd get bored, or they'd move on to somebody else. And I used to think, oh no, I need these people to be engaged. I'm at a networking event, you know? So it made me think. And then a couple of people met me, and we talk for longer and longer, and they get to know me and have patience to hear the whole story. And this one woman was like, right, I want you to present in Malta. So that's why I said yes. We're going to Malta. We're going to present in my conference. That always
I'd go as well.
Yeah, it's a sweetener. Because at first I was like, absolutely not. I will not talk about me. So I've been presenting to people for years. Since university, I've absolutely loved being able to voice my opinion loudly so everybody listens and a room stops. But if you ask me to talk about myself, you know, as much as people laugh and joke that I love talking about myself, it's the worst thing ever. And I still struggle with it and work myself up and have a nervous breakdown afterwards. But anyway, always the way. So I started thinking in this presentation, how do I talk about myself, but how do I make that thing that they're all looking for from me worthwhile? So I sat down and I was having a conversation with, I've got like 3 friends that are really close. One girl I went to school with all the way through the years in university. Another friend is my best friend in netball. And then my other friend is my best friend from work. And there's 3 of them, and I keep them close, and they're never together in one place, but I use them for different things emotionally, I guess. They're very different, but perfect for me. And I remember having conversations with each of them, and it was about, they just kept asking me questions. Well, but why do you do it, Danny? Why do you kill yourself? Because the one that plays netball, she's naturally good, and she probably didn't push herself as hard as me. I don't want to take anything away from her because she worked hard, but she doesn't want it as much as me. She would like, if I'm not good enough and I'm dropped, I'll just move on to something else. I was like, no, got to go again. They just started pressing me. So, but why do you do that? Why does it matter so much? And that's when I sat and I thought about it, and I thought it stems back to my childhood for sure. So this is where I struggled to talk about this, but my mum was an alcoholic, and we didn't have, oh God, I get emotional so quickly with this. So I'm emotionally stunted, just so you know. Everyone calls me emotionally stunted because I don't cry for anything, and I don't cry for normal things. But if I talk about this, for some reason, there's emotion there that I don't want to fix, because I fear that if I fix it, I won't be able to do what I do, this whole process. But it's really difficult to talk about, and I force myself to do it because I think people resonate with it. But my mum was an alcoholic, and very much a narcissist, you know, which I realised as I got older. I didn't know that at all. It was my normal. So to me, this was very normal. My dad was just really strict. He was an MD of a pharmaceutical business. You know, everything to him was about being successful, and he did it very naturally and did it very well. I feel like he was the competitive one, because he never let us win. If he challenged us with anything, he'd always win to teach us a lesson. And the day we won was enough, you know, that was the day he's done his job. You know, it was kind of that relationship. So if we were
Mhm.
sick or too tired to get up, which was not really for me, he'd force us to go to training. As long as we went to training, even if he disappeared for a week with work or whatever, he'd always come back and go, but did you go to training? Did you? And if
Mhm.
we didn't, we'd be punished for that. So,
Yeah.
but Dad, my leg was hanking off and I was really ill. But did you go to training? It was kind of like that. So I never missed training. Or if I promised to be somewhere, I'd always be there. It was kind of that really strict relationship. But yeah, I remember this one moment where I made the promise to myself, and this is why I talk about this one particular moment. But there were lots of them. School must have known that my mum was an alcoholic, and that home life was very different to everyone else's. And I knew it was different because I always wanted to be at everyone else's house. So this lady who took me under her wing for netball, I used to sleep at hers all the time. I used to get to her house really early before their whole household woke up. I was like their alarm clock. So I'd ring the doorbell. The first child, she had 5 kids. The first one would wake up and open the door, let me in. I'd boil the kettle, I'd eat their bananas, I'd make myself some toast while they were all in the shower getting ready and me waiting for my mate to walk to school. But she let me do that. Like, I think to myself, how cheeky. I was eating all her food before her own kids woke up and ate food. And I have given back, like, I go and thank her every day. But
Yeah.
it's just like, uh, I knew that I needed other families because that was normal to me. Their family was normal, like the chaos of 5 kids all trying to get breakfast and get out the house on time. I loved sitting there just watching them. How are you not dressed yet? Because I was already dressed for school and I'd had my shower and I'd walked 15 minutes down the road. I'd caught the first bus on my own to get to theirs. And I was just sitting around for an hour or so waiting for everyone else's chaos to unravel. And I used to eat my toast or the banana I'd stolen and watch all of this chaos and loved it. And the same after school, like I'd go to theirs after school before I caught the bus home, and she'd already cooked dinner. So she'd be like, oh, there's some food for you. So I'd eat a bit of dinner there because when I got home, it was kind of like, there's a tin of hot dog sausages if you want to open and put them in the microwave, or there's a tin of sweet corn you can warm up, or there's leftovers from yesterday's takeaway that you can warm up. There was never really a sit down, let's have dinner together. It was always like, you've forgotten to feed us, or there's no food, or there's in the fridge, or here's £1 or £2, go and get some fish and chips. It was always a bit disjointed. So I used to love the smell of her cooking when I got there, and the fact she'd always look at me and go, I'd be like, I'm going home now. I've just popped in to say hi. And she'd be like, do you want a bowl of cottage pie or whatever it was? And I'd be like, yes, please. And I'd just like quickly eat it. And then I'd be like, right, I'm going now. And I'd have to go home to do my homework, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but yeah, so I knew that everything was very different. But the teachers at school, in my secondary school, were unreal because they used to keep me busy the same way my dad did. I remember them always going, oh, we've got this club after school. Do you want to do it, Danny? I'll be like, yeah. Because anything to avoid going home was perfect for me. You've got to come in at, 7:30 before everyone else. Do you want to come in and do it? Yeah, I'll be there. And I'd do that as well. So I remember they used to go, oh, Danielle will be in the sports team for this. I used to play hockey, netball, swim club. I'm rubbish at swim. Well, I can swim, but I don't like it. But I do.
You can swim, but you're not an Olympian, but you can swim.
No, yeah. I got the badges. That was my goal. I had to get each of the badges.
Yes.
The lifesaving course. So my teachers used to put me into stuff, and netball, I know I was good and I used to love it, and everyone wanted me on their team. And I used to pick my best mates who weren't good at netball to be on my team and go, don't worry, I'll win it for us. And I'd do everyone's job at centre and loved it. And I remember my teachers approaching me saying, we've got these county trials. This was like, I think I was 14. We've got these county trials for under 16. Are you resonating with this?
I'm resonating with it, but I'm also loving the story. So I'm loving. We're getting 3 or 4 different things coming in. So please keep talk. I'm leaning back and enjoying. So please keep going.
Okay. So the teacher kind of like, I was in this room with 2 teachers that I loved them. They were my PE teachers. Everyone loves your PE teachers, but they really adored me and gave me lots of opportunity. How I see it now, but I remember them taking me in the room and going, right, Danny, there's this under 16 trial for county, but we're allowed to send girls who are younger to it. But there's no pressure at all. We'd like to send you because you're good. But if you don't make it, we just want you to learn. It's an environment where you'll meet these coaches, you'll be on their radar. It's going to be a great learning process, but we want to understand like what happens there and what was a challenge. And they kind of, I don't know whether they wanted me to bring that back to help them coach us or whatever, but I was just like, yeah, straight away. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I've got to do it on a date. Yeah, it's on Saturday. So you've got to get yourself to here. So they gave me this piece of paper with the address on. Here's how you get there. So I'd spoken to someone else's parent. I had to catch 2 buses from where I live because it was on the other side of town. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. It's fine. And they were like, you're not going to go on your own. I was like, oh, I don't know. I'll speak to mum, which I never did. And I woke up that morning, I was so excited for this trial because I thought, oh my God, if I make this, if you made county back in my day, you were going to make England. So it was kind of a stepping stone. So you had to do it. And I was in a position now where I was getting to do it sooner. I was going to get there earlier than everyone else. So for me, this was like, I barely slept all week thinking about it. I was over preparing, running sprints in the garden against my brother, no joke, passing a ball up a wall, getting my coaches, can you stay after school with me and just do this? And they were like, you don't need to do these things. Anyway, I woke up that morning, as I did, first in the household. Everyone else was asleep. Well, my mum, my dad was away somewhere as he was. And I had to catch these buses. So the first thing I did is snuck in my mum's room because my dad had a trouser press, and he used to take the money out of his business trousers and put the cash, like all his loose change, on the top.
Yeah.
Fold his trousers up and put it in the trouser press. So we always knew there were pennies on there. So if I ever wanted to go meet my friend and go to the sweet shop, I'd steal 20p off there to get a 20p mix up, or, the bus fare I used to steal off there. So I thought, I've got to get some bus fare. So I went in there, stole the 50p's or whatever because it was cheap on the bus back. I think an all-dayer was £1. So I get an all-day ticket for every bus. I'm showing my age now.
No, is that old money? No, go on.
No. So stole my pound or whatever it was for my all-dayer. And off I went, with my netball trainer, like in my netball kit, ready to go. Walked 15 minutes down the road. Felt like the longest 15 minutes, at least 15-minute walk I could do for school. Got on the first bus and I sat upstairs on my own and thought it was really cool because it made me feel older. Got off this bus in the middle of Birmingham city centre, which was chaos and a bit scary. I just remember Birmingham being really busy, really noisy, and everything was way taller than me. So I remember getting off thinking, oh my God, I'm normally only here with parents or family or friends, but I'm on my own. And I felt really big. Found the next, I hunted down for this bus I had to get on. So I got onto the next bus with my old day. Got off and it was pretty much over the road from where I had to be. So again, I felt like I was on, like on clouds, walking on clouds. I was skipping in there. I was so excited. Anyway, as I was approaching, there were other people walking in with their parents. So I was just smiling. I didn't know any of them because they were older than me. And it was from the county. So it was all schools, not just mine. And I was the only one from my school. And I got into the building and I was like, oh, I'm here. It was like a leisure centre. I'm here for this netball trial. Yes, follow the corridor down. And as I was going through the corridor, there were like kids sitting on the floor, putting their trainers on and parents talking to them. It was really noisy. And I was walking through and it gets dark because there were I just remember walking through and it was getting darker and scarier. And I heard this one mum go, have you eaten that banana? You need that for energy. And I thought, oh, I haven't got a banana. And then I carried on walking. This other mum went, they're not your netball trainers. Put your netball trainers on because they're better for grip. And I thought, oh, I'm wearing my netball trainers. I wear them for everything. I haven't got a second pair. Anyway, walked through, registered, got a number written on my arm and my leg, went into the main hall and sat on my own. And that's when I started realising, oh, my God, I am on my own because other people were in groups of friends. Like I said, some people had both their parents there or sisters and brothers or at least one parent. And I thought, I started to overthinking things. I thought, oh, no, I love netball. I'll be fine. Went into this trial anyway, and it was really hard. I found at that point, it was the most challenging netball I'd ever played. It was hard. And I thought at the end of it, like now I know how to analyse netball. I put in a shift. I worked really hard and fitness was never a problem for me. And so I know that I would have worked really hard, but skill-wise, I probably wasn't there because I'd already identified the girls that I knew that were going to get through, that were better than me and that were doing things. And I kept thinking how I hadn't had to do my process so quickly, the process of getting good. So I thought to myself, how can I show that I can do what she does now when I've not done that before? I've not, met the ball that way. I've not intercepted a ball that way or whatever it was. So I do remember having a little bit of a mental panic about things and then talking to myself. I was inside my own head having these big conversations about, you need to do this, Danny. Oh, you didn't do it. I'm going on the next game in this position. I've got to change at what I'm doing. And there was so much going on. It was frantic. And it's ruthless in netball. You kind of stand in a hall at the end and they call out your numbers. So they kind of say, oh, if we call out your number, you stand over to the right-hand side of all the coaches. And if you stay there in that group of rejects as such. So I'm standing there and I'm like, I don't remember what my number was the first time, but anyway, I stood there and I was saying my number over and over in my head, like waiting for it to say it at the same time, when you repeat it over and over
Yeah.
again.
So 50.
And then this girl
50.
would go,
Yeah.
yeah, say this number, say this number. And then this girl would go, we'd applaud her. Then this girl would go and then we'd applaud her. Then all of a sudden it went quiet and the coach kind of went, and thank you very much to the rest of you. You're free to go. Everyone else, can you stay behind? And can the parents, because we're going to tell you the next steps. So I kind of stood there and I remember like literally a physical, like I didn't plan for this. Like I didn't plan to not get in or not be taken over, have that conversation. And so I stood there and I kind of, half of me thought I didn't know what to do next. So I remember like I looked to the left and there were girls there and they were crying loudly. I looked to the other side and these girls were crying loudly, but the parents were there. The parents had ran over and started hugging them. So I kind of felt, I don't know if this is how I remember it. I felt like I was standing in the middle of this huge room with these girls who were all way taller than me, because don't forget they were older. I was shorter than them, all being hugged and all of them crying. And I stood there and thought, don't cry, Danny. Don't cry, Danny. There's no one to hug you. Don't cry. So I'm standing there for ages, like it felt like forever, thinking, do I go and say to the coach, have you got this right? Did you forget my number? All those things going through your mind. And then I thought, just get out of there. This is embarrassing. So I ran to my bag and coat that was just in the corner of this room, ran out of the building to the bus stop and then stood there, and the bus took forever to come, forever. And I'm just standing there and I must have been in shock because I just didn't know what to do. So the first bus came. The first bus felt like, the bus must have been a 20-minute journey, but it felt like an hour or so. And I was thinking, when am I going to get to, I got into the city centre, ran to the next bus stop. The bus took forever to come. There's people trying to be nice to me or have a conversation. And I didn't want to talk to anyone because I had all this emotion that I thought if I talk, I'm going to cry. Whereas normally I'd talk to everybody and anybody. Got on this next bus. Again, it was probably a half an hour drive, probably a bit more. And I could see like I'm at this bus stop, right, I've got 5 more stops. It was kind of like that kind of feeling. Got to the top of my 15-minute walk and it was the longest walk of my life. I just felt like I couldn't move my legs. My house was getting further away. And I don't know why I just remember it being like this worst journey. Yeah. Anyway, got home, walked into the house and I was like, Mum, where are you, sort of thing. And I could hear the TV on in the back room, in like our dining room. We had 2 living rooms, the good living room and the one we were allowed in. And she was in that one. And I remember I remember walking in there, like we lived in a Victorian house, so the door handles were really high. So I just remember again, like reaching for this door handle and she'd close the door properly, which we never used to do. So I had to really turn this knob and just little things like that I remember every step because it was painful, I think. Yeah. Anyway, I walk into this room and my mum's sitting. I've got orange wallpaper, multicoloured. We had a matching brown and orange sofa that was horrific. And I just remember her perched on the end of it with this big bowl of water and, a colander with the potatoes in. And she was peeling the potatoes old school with a knife, doing the spiders that I used to admire. And the TV was on in the background. She was watching one of her rubbish programmes that I never used to understand, some sitcom or whatever. And she kind of looked at me angry, and I knew she was going to be angry because Sophie had left the house, which I used to do all the time and not tell her where I was, but she didn't care till I got back. And I was like, just started crying. I dropped my bag on the floor and I was like, Mum, I'd just been to this netball trial. I kind of like blurted everything out really fast. And I was like, and I didn't make it. And this is one of, it was kind of one of those. Yeah. And she kind of just froze and stared at me. And I expected, I don't know, I think I thought she'd get up and hug me. I'd have, that hug that that I was waiting for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on, sorry.
Take your time.
Oh gosh. Sorry. And I remember her standing up. Gosh, sorry. I think it's because I literally relive this moment. Every time I talk about it, I can see my trainers, like looking down at my trainers. I can see the room and where everything was, the French windows that were open to the garden and the stereo player and the record player, all that kind of stuff. You can see it all. Anyway, she stood up and she just got angry. She started shouting at me and she said, where did you get the money from? So have you stolen the money off your dad's thing again? Why did you leave the house? You didn't tell me where you're going. Who told you to do this? You're so stupid. If you would have told me, I would have told you you wouldn't have done this. You're too young. You're not good enough. And all I remember is just this, tirade of anger. You're not going to that thing after school next week, you're staying in, and all this stuff of how she was punishing me. And I just
Yeah.
remember it getting quieter and quieter as she got louder and louder. And I know I was just standing in this bubble of shock, I guess. It was kind of like,
Yeah.
no, that's not what you're meant to do. Anyway, as she got bored of repeating herself, and I'd definitely heard everything she said, and she kind of dismissed me because you can't walk away when you're getting in trouble in my household,
Hmm.
Jamaican
Yeah.
household.
You stop, you listen.
You listen, you know,
Mm.
you can't walk away. So I waited until I was allowed to go, and I ran up to my room and shut the door, and I sat on my bed. Excuse me, sorry. I sat on my bed and I cried. And I cried and I was angry. I was angry for thinking that the reaction would be different because I know better. I
Yeah.
know I'm not allowed to take the money. I know I'm not allowed to go really that far on my own.
Mm.
And I know normally I would have said something or asked permission and had to beg for a week that it'd be fine for me to go, and she would have let me go, but I knew it was my fault. But then it was like a not good enough feeling, a feeling of actually you didn't make it, and how am I going to tell the teacher? Like I'm embarrassed. How I can't go to school this week. How am I going to tell them? And all those things went through my head. And anyway, obviously my teacher wasn't upset with me. She reminded me because I said, look, I didn't make it. I'm never doing it again. I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Right.
And that was it. And my teacher was like, Danielle, remember, we said to you that there's a possibility you weren't going to get in. It would have been great if you did, and a bonus, but you've got next year. You can do this again next year. But I was like, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever go through that again. It was upsetting. It was I had all these emotions that probably I'd
Yeah.
ignored before that were really, really like prevalent and amplified by what my mum was saying to me. And actually for weeks, you know, my mum used to do this thing, she still does it to this day, where if we bumped into a family member or a friend, she'd be like, this is Danielle, my daughter. Oh, she's in a mood at the moment. I used to think, no, I'm not. She's in a mood at the moment because she's grounded because she went against me, my word, and she travelled and put herself in danger, but she didn't make the netball team, and she has these ambitions that are, you know, unachievable. And she'd be telling the rest of the world, in my opinion, the whole world knew I didn't make this team, and the embarrassment, I had to relive that over and over, and I just got angrier and angrier with her. Anyway, I did stop applying myself, I think, for a short period where I went through this emotion of, I don't want to be in that. I don't want to have that conversation with mum. I need to avoid that uncomfortableness. I don't want to embarrass myself and not be good enough. So I kind of withdrew, I think, for a while. Like I was quieter at school, and I remember teachers trying to encourage me, and I'd be like, I used to make up excuses. I can't stay behind tonight. And I'd slowly get home from school instead of staying behind. And I just didn't want to put myself in a position where I could go through any of those emotions. Anyway, I cried. I know I cried most nights to sleep for it would have been well over a month. It was a long time, and it would come back. Like if I was having a bad day, I'd cry before bed just because of this.
Yeah. How did you get through it?
Say again.
How did you get through this period?
A year went on, and my teacher approached me to go back to this trial, and I said to her, absolutely. I remember going, no, and I got really panicked. I was like, absolutely not. I can't do it. I'm not allowed. And they were like, don't be silly. Don't be silly. And then the summary of that conversation was, well, we're putting you in for it. It's up to you if you turn up to it. Here's your piece of paper with how you get there, sort of thing, what buses to catch. And I went home that week from school, and it was a Saturday morning again. And I remember, you know, for me, I don't forget there was that whole, if somebody expects me somewhere, I can't not be there because I'll get in trouble with dad for that. You know, if someone tells me I've got to be somewhere, I've agreed it, I'd never let them down. And so I got up, I did the same thing. I took the money off my dad's trouser press. He wasn't there again. Everyone was asleep. I caught all the buses, and the journey was really quick because I think I was more fearful about getting there this time. Anyway, I approached the leisure centre, had a banana this time. I also had a second pair of trainers because I kept my old ones to travel in, and I'd had a new pair because every year Dad would buy us a new pair of trainers. So I remembered all those things from my preparation. And I went in this time, and I remember entering this hall, and it felt different. It was light, it was brighter. I was taller, so the post was closer. It was just little weird things. And everyone wasn't taller than me. I was actually really tall. I felt like I was one of the tallest. Yeah. So I went in, when I got there, it was like a moment. Again, I don't know why I remember so much detail of these two days, but it was a moment of relaxation where I thought, I've got this. That, you know, I'm taller than these girls, so I know I've got an advantage. I know I'm good. I feel comfortable. I've been here before. There was no fear, you know. I'd done it without parents. So again, people's parents were there. Anyway, I went through the trial, and the more I went on and played these matches, and my number called out, and my number was 129. Nine's my lucky number. I was born on the 9th of the 9th. I was born at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I've always had this thing where number 9, if I see a 9, it's a sign that I'm meant to be in that place, or something's about to happen good, or, you know, whatever, as I mentioned to you. Yeah. So, you know, 129 was my number on my arm. And anyway, went through this trial and felt so much confidence. I got out there. I played my first, second and third position. I filled in for a girl that got injured and played out of position. But there was confidence, and I felt amazing, and I knew I was strong, and I felt like there's other girls looking at me for a change, going, she's the strong one. She's definitely going to get in. It was kind of that feeling. Anyway, lined up again, numbers started to get called out, and I was doing it again, 129, 129, 129. And she said my number, 129. And I remember jumping with elation, running over to this coach, wrapping my legs around her, and she just kind of was like, I didn't know them either, and it was kind of like, yes, Danny, we're just calling out other people's numbers. Can you just sit over there? And I was like, yes, but thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much. It was like, sit here. And I remember sitting down, everyone just looking at me odd, because again, there were a few girls that I knew, but they were over there and some were over here, and there were new girls still. So I thought, oh, shush, Danny, you know, no one knows you're meant to be quiet. Anyway, we kind of got next steps or whatever, and the coach came over and congratulated me and said, I love your reaction, because everyone else walks over quietly and just accepts it or doesn't or whatever. Anyway, I ran home. I ran to the bus stop. The bus was there. I jumped on this bus. It was really fast. The 15-minute walk was a sprint. I literally thought, I'm running all the way, because I cannot wait to tell everybody this news. Got in the house again. Mum. She was upstairs in her bedroom this time. She was folding laundry. And I ran in there and I was like, Mum, I know you're going to be angry. I know you're going to tell me I shouldn't have done it, but I did it. I did take Dad's money. I kind of admitted all the things I'm going to get in trouble for. And I said, but the great news is, and I was pointing at my 129 on my arm, I was like, I made it, I'm in. And expecting I don't know what I was expecting. I knew it wouldn't be that reaction. I'm not going to get in trouble this time because it's good.
Yes.
And I remember her staring at me, and she was sitting on the bed, so I was above her, and she looked up at me, and then she carried on folding and washing and looked away. So I stood there for a minute, and I felt like, you know, like on cartoons when you see a cartoon character get angry and it starts red at their feet and then their whole body turns red and steam comes out their ear. I felt like a moment of, oh my God, overwhelming anger's come in. And I was going to, you know, you can't swear at your parents. I still to this day don't. I can't shout at my mum because I'm going to get a punishment. So I stood there, and it took everything in me not to get angry. And I kept thinking, what do I say? She's not saying anything. And then I all of a sudden, like in the moment, thought, hang on a minute. This feeling is way better than the one I had last time. I'll take it. So I ran off into my bedroom, turned my music on as loud as I could, and this time jumped on my bed for absolute ages, singing my favourite songs, elated and thinking, I can't wait for Monday to come to tell my teacher that I made it. You know what I mean? Because there's no mobile phones. Like, I couldn't text everyone. I had to wait till someone knocked the door, and they'd be like, guess what I did today? Or, you know, or my dad, you know, one of the dads were taking us all swimming, so I could tell the swim girls, you know, oh, guess what I did today? Or I waited till Monday morning to get to school, to get to my friend's house and wake them all up to tell them I made the steam, and, you know, to get to school and tell the teachers. But that feeling I held on to, and I still feel it. Because
Which feeling?
I know, I call it, well, it's adrenaline. The feeling of success, the feeling of achievement, the feeling of happiness. And I think when I was younger, I called it my happiness. If I did well at anything, I got that feeling. It was like butterflies from my stomach that came up into my chest, that entered my throat. And it's just like everything tingles, and it's the best feeling in the world. And I wanted that repeatedly. I'd felt it on that day, and I wanted it again, and I wanted it again. And it also meant that I didn't have that pain. I didn't get that upset. I wasn't going to cry. So I remember like writing a list and putting on there, I'm not going to cry anymore, because it doesn't matter what anyone says. As long as I'm successful at things, it's not going to hurt. As long as I'm successful at things, I'm going to be happy. As long as I'm successful at things, other people will like me. Other people will tell me I'm good enough. and I can get those things that my mum won't give me from others. So I wrote
Right.
this on this list. I made the promise that I wasn't going to cry anymore for no reason. I also made a promise that I was going to be successful in everything I did. So I started writing down everything I could do. I went back to school and I did hockey club, netball club, obviously, swim club, chess, and I'm awful at chess. But I joined up to chess. I absolutely hate it to this day, and I'm still no good. I did an extra GCSE. So GCSE PE was new at my year. I think it was just coming in. So they were trialling it with 5
Hmm.
people in our school, or a handful of people. And I never got selected. And I realised now, because I had so much going on at home and I applied myself to so many sports, I had a letter saying, unfortunately, as you do so much, we don't think it would be something you could take on. And I spoke to the
Yeah.
teachers. I was devastated. I wanted to stay. It was after school. And I told
Yeah.
my teacher I was going to stay. And I did the extra GCSE, but I wasn't allowed to take the test because I could stay after school. But ever since then,
Yes.
I get that feeling from making a squad, passing
Mm.
a test, getting a job, getting that phone call to say you've got the job, you're now going to
Yeah.
work for us. I get that same adrenaline, and so now I chase it.
Hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not successful in everything I do, and everything is hard, and I have to apply
Well,
myself. And
yeah. Well,
but I
it's like you
don't.
just said, you
Mm,
get the sense. I mean, it's funny because what makes it, and I'll use the word funny, or maybe it's odd, or the, I guess the complexity in it is you say you get that feeling from success. And one of the things you listed off was something that, well, certainly by most standards, you're rubbish at, being chess.
yeah,
And yet you call it success.
so
So,
that's
so
because
yeah,
you had to apply to be in the chess team, and I got in. That's success. I had to. You go to a competition, and within your school, and then once a select few then went to compete against another school. I got success because I was one of the ones that got to go to the next school. So it's like marginal success that I gain the
mhm,
same feeling from. So as long as I'm ticking a box,
yeah,
because for me, if you think about the lists that I write all the time, whether it be monthly, daily, whatever, weekly, it's all right. I've got chess this week, but they're going to
yeah,
select who's going. So that again is an achievement for me. They've got to select
yeah,
5 of us out of 25 of us. Tick, I've done it again. So it's
yeah,
kind of these little things. I write a things to do list for working from home now, and unless I get
yes,
to the bottom of that list and tick everything, I can't switch off. So I do work till midnight sometimes, or I won't go out, and sometimes I won't eat lunch because I've got to sit here for long enough to tick the box, and I still
yeah,
do it, and I know I do it because when I fail at things, which definitely happens, or don't make a squad, or I've always made jobs, so I haven't got one where I didn't go make a job. But those kind of situations I'm in where I don't get something I want, and now go into a mode of, because I struggle to cry. Ridiculous, I know, because I've got emotional, but because I struggle to cry in normal situations, I guess I'll go through my process straight away. So all that happens is I move into solution mode where I go, right, don't worry.
mm,
Okay, there's disappointment happens first. The
yeah,
feeling that I felt when I didn't make something creeps in, but then I hold it. It's like it kind of, like I said, that cartoon feeling where it gets to halfway and I think, right,
mm,
hold it. Don't let it get here because you'll cry. And I can hold it. And then I'm like, right, what do you need to do? So then it's like, do I want to make that team? Do I want that job? The answer is
yeah,
normally yes. Right, what have you got to do? Well, this person's really good at it. I'm going to phone them. I'm going to go and spend a week with them. I'm going to do, I've got to research. I'm going to go to the library, used to be, or I'm going to Google and research all of this. I'm going to watch a program. I'm going to watch something specific to this role. I'm going to, I'm going to speak to someone who does that role already. I went for an interview to work for BRMB, and I noticed that this guy had a branded BRMB car. It was a radio station in my day in
mhm,
Birmingham, and he lived up the road from me, and I saw his car every day. So I knew he worked. I knocked on his door and said, I've got an interview just to be an admin person on reception for BRB, but you work
mhm,
there. Right, what are they going to say to my interview? What did you have to do? And this guy actually was a top dog who was
yeah,
like running the place, and I was interviewing with someone below him, and he couldn't believe, he didn't tell me who he was. He just gave me some
mhm,
pointers, and I went to the interview and he was there, and I was like, oh, you're my neighbor, you live up the road or whatever. And he was like, yes, lovely to meet you. I don't know, the CEO of here or
yeah,
whatever. And I was like,
yeah,
couldn't believe I'd done it. But it was things like that for me, there was no fear, no embarrassment, because I had
mm,
to do it. Because if I don't do those
yeah,
things, I'm not going to get where I need to. And I'm not going to avoid that painful
I get
feeling.
it.
I'm not going to get the
Yes,
adrenaline. So I know that I relived that moment. I now know, I knew it deep down, but I never admitted it, I guess, because remember, I don't tell,
Committed.
nobody knows about my childhood. A lot of my friends
Yeah.
that I'm in groups with won't know that, because I've
Yeah.
never told anyone. I don't say it out loud because I don't want to get emotional. But I now know
Yeah.
that one moment must have done something to me, or like I said, I made those promises to myself and I stuck to them. There was no way I wasn't going to cry anymore. So every time we had this battle on where she'd shout at me for everything, or if she wanted to punish me,
Yeah.
but the one thing I couldn't do is cry in front of her. I used to run to my room and cry on my own so I could say to everyone I didn't cry. I'd stop, and so that's why I feel now I don't cry. If something drastic happens, I first of all I go into solution. Right, how do I fix it? How do I make everyone else feel okay? And if I do cry, it'll be on my own
Yeah.
or on my own
So,
later.
I mean, it is quite, I mean, it's a very powerful story. And I think there's so many ways to step into that where I have probably 10 different questions along each different tangent. I, I'll I'll stay true to why we're having the conversation, and not let my interest just take us everywhere. But thanks for sharing even parts of that story. But thanks for taking us through that piece, because it's given me such a wonderful understanding of what you have lived through, what you've gone through, but also how you've taken those moments, and they're so vivid in the way that you described, and sort of brought me back with you. I felt like I was in the room. I felt like I was in that corridor getting narrower,
Yeah,
and how that same corridor got wider and brighter a year later. And I just think, for you, what it sounds like is what you're learning, and I still want you to describe what your superpower is, at least how you describe it, but it sounds like you've learned to enjoy. There's an HBR article called "The Power of Small Wins,"
right.
and what you seem to have naturally have done is breaking down all of these things, all of these emotions, where you celebrate that small win. You're able to recognize a situation, sort of distill the emotion, get a sense of that emotion, and know how to regulate, get that clarity of thought,
Yeah,
and then recognize, marginal gains, those little
right.
bits of moving forward every single time. That to me already sounds quite amazing and quite impressive, and very vivid. How do you describe, at that networking event, how do you describe your superpower?
I struggle still. If anything, I have to tell a really short version of somebody asked me what my superpower is, and I don't know how to explain it to you. I feel like if you want something bad enough in life, I believe you can have it. There's always sacrifice. It's never easy,
Yes.
and you always have to learn and grow. But I
Oh,
believe
yeah.
there's always a way. I believe
I,
there's a way.
I, oh, listen, well, I won't put you on the spot here, but when we talk after this, I'm gonna say, right, we're getting you a superpower, because I think there's so much that you've just described and all of these things. But I think a way to figure that out, certainly for me as I'm thinking now, is, I actually feel I'm even looking at the time. I'm thinking we've already gone way over, but I'm still
Right.
curious, because we haven't really even delved into
Sorry.
your career. We haven't delved into um, the juggle, the balance, the shifts and transitions that you've made. And now I'm curious about, well, what of your story, what of your journey that you've shared now in depth, how has that impacted? How has it supported you? Maybe even held you back in some respect, but how has it supported you to where you are today? Um, I want to keep going on. Hopefully, you've still got time
I
and
have,
you don't
yeah.
have to dash straight away. Great, awesome. So look, I guess I jump into that. So I'm not going to ask what your superpower is. We're just going to keep moving on with this story, because netball, you said early on, it is not a sport that at that time enabled you to be a full-time, well-paid
No.
professional athlete. You had this dream of playing for your country, representing England,
Yeah.
right? How did you intend? So, whilst that dream goes on, one, was it clear that you had to be doing something else in the
Yeah.
normal traditional world? And therefore, how did you figure out what that was going to be?
Great question. So, again, Jamaican household, you have to tick boxes. So academics is important. So whether you want it or not, you have to get your GCSEs,
Yeah.
and you have to go to college, you have to get your A levels, and you have to go to university. So my granddad from Jamaica would come and visit every year, and that visit we'd look forward to. And the thing he used to make me do is make sure you've got a book because you're going to read me a paragraph from a book. So I used to have to do that. But then his next question was, how are we going? How are we getting on at school? What are you trying to achieve next? What university are you going to? So, my path in my mind was always I had to do that. I don't think there was any question I had to do my A levels and go to uni. So that's what I did. So that obviously freed me up to carry on playing sport alongside it. So you join a local club, you go to training every week, you play in the league, you play in tournaments. You normally have an off season over summer, but we have a winter league and a summer league. Summer league is fun and not a higher standard. Winter league is the important thing that the standard that we train for. I just never stopped. I've played, touch wood, I didn't have injury until way later in life. So I was always super fit, super strong, did everything outside. If I wasn't good at something or I had to strengthen my legs, I'd be doing that with my brother at home while then I'd go to all the sports. So and then I had to get a job on the side because then my dad stopped leaving money on the trouser press. So I had to catch buses myself, Then
what was your job?
I started doing, I worked for a phone company. So I basically learned how to set everyone's mobile phones up. It was big back in the day. I worked for 3 different networks. And I did that alongside college and uni, and I loved it. I could break into anybody's phone. Don't ever tell anyone. I could listen to everyone else's voice. You can't do it anymore. Go into people's voicemails. I could port your number to someone else's phone. I could do all sorts of things. I was the queen of breaking into people's phones. That's not what I was meant to learn how to do, but
no. But sounds like you learned it, maybe used it, maybe never used it.
Never.
Yeah.
Sales. So I went into sales. I could talk to anyone. I love finding out. I love learning about other people and working out why they're not like me or what they have that I've got. So I love conversations. I'll talk to anyone forever. So in the phone industry, you stand in a shop and people came in, you have to approach them, ask them what phone they have. And, we used to do this game where you can guess what phone people would have by what they look like.
Yes.
So they're a BlackBerry user, they are, or they're a Nokia user, things like that. But because people have certain personality traits, and it's really bizarre.
It must be really hard now. That's gone. Everyone,
it has.
Samsung or iPhone.
iPhone or Android is the conversation. Are you an iPhone user or are you an Android?
Yeah. What am I?
You could be an Android user. Are you an Android user? iPhone. No. Well, you've got Apple.
iPhone.
I should have put 2 and 2 together.
That's right. Should have given you the clue. But yes, no, iPhone. Yeah. Now I'm curious now. I'm thinking, what do my brother, he's an Android. My brother's an Android. Yeah.
Oh, really? Highly intellectual.
He's an Android user. Yeah.
Android users I bet you any minute, Android users are going to be really intellectual, probably have views that are sometimes controversial. What else can I say? Very, very stubborn, strong-minded, very opinionated. There'll be those kind of people. That's my opinion only. iPhone users
love that.
Probably a little bit more tech savvy, probably more conscious about fashion, not materialistic as such, but likes to be down with the trends and wants to stay ahead of trends and probably more in social media than the other people. That's how I see it. Do you know what's really funny? It'd be so funny if people start messaging me saying, actually, I'm an Android and I'm like that.
This is it. Do you know what? Forget the whole show. That's the clip that's going out. That's the bit that we're going to put on YouTube. It's like, what YouTube channel doesn't matter. But we did. But this is what we found interesting.
I bet you I can guess. Anyway. I'm really good at star signs. I can guess people's star signs, but don't test me yet. Went into sales. And then I knew I was good at sales because then obviously you get targeted. So we used to get the more phones I sold, the more points I'd gain, which would give me a free phone. And then it'd give me a free phone with an add-on because, you used to get everything calls free, whatever. So I knew I was good at sales and I found it really easy. I absolutely loved it. It's the whole process in my mind. If you need something because you're walking into my shop, all I'm doing is matching up what's best for you. And I'm being honest. I'm going to advise you. You need this because of this. This is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So the sales process has never been uncomfortable to me because if you're coming to me or, unless it's a cold call and then I'm going to find out if you need something and find out that first before I then sell it to you. But for me, I find that process really easy. I don't get uncomfortable with it. And that's how I train it now.
Yeah. And so that for you was your career. And, as you said, you had this dream in sport and you knew where that wanted to take you representing your country. for your then I'll say traditional for the career in sales, what aspirations did you have in there?
So first of all, it was money because I had to have a gym membership to train outside. Once you leave school and things like that, you don't have it. So in my mind, I needed to pay for a gym membership. I also juggled my personal life, like having fun and
Yeah.
going out with my mates. And then on top of that, I had to pay for travel to get to and from my netball games and tournaments if I wanted, because I still to this day, if someone phones me and goes, I've got a netball game, it's in an hour, can you be there? Yes, I'll find a way, because I never say no to sport. I'd always get there. So, yeah, and then it was obviously I had to pass my driving test, I had to pay for my lessons, I had to buy a car and my insurance, I did it all
Yeah.
myself. So I had to have the job, and sales was the quickest way to earn money, because when you're at
Mhm.
early career stages, your salary is going to be low, but with sales, you can amplify that by hitting targets and getting bonuses. So I had to
Yeah.
stay in sales and I had to be the best. So I went
Yeah.
into health and fitness. David Lloyd, in particular, they have a 2-week
Mm.
sales training program that was really intense, and you had to pass it to be able to go and sell. And I think I learned a lot of my skill set from there. But yeah, I found it easy. Why wouldn't you want to be in the gym? Why wouldn't you want to have this feeling of euphoria when you're fit?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to challenge yourself? It was all sport. It was easy. So I worked in the gym industry for years because one, you get a free gym membership, so I could train myself. I could be there all the
Yeah.
time, train myself for my sport, but at the same time, it was paying me. I enjoyed it. It was like-minded people. It was easy to sell because to me, it was a no-brainer. Everyone should have a gym membership. But then it got to the competitive
Yes.
level where I had to be the best sales. So there were leagues, best salesperson across all 27 David
Mm.
Lloyds. I had to be at the top, and I won a Ferrari for the weekend. You know, I used to win all these incentives, holidays, trips, extra bonus
Yeah.
phones. You know, then it was
Yeah.
what's next? Well, I'm the best
So,
salesperson. I now need to be a manager. Then I'm
yeah.
now a manager. I now need to be a trainer to train everyone how I do what I do. Now I'm a trainer. I need to be a regional manager. Then I have to be a sales director, then managing
Mm.
director. It just went on from
Yeah.
there.
And during that, how I mean, it's wonderful that you have a natural competitivity or competitiveness.
Yes.
Um, that that probably a good chunk is your brother giving you that as well, but or at
Yeah.
least honing it in many respects.
Yeah.
So when you then look at, and I'm interested, what was the hardest part for you during that balance between being an international and having this drive for your sales career as well? What was the hardest part of balancing or juggling those two?
The hardest part was making England. I didn't make England. Well, I played at Prem level. So in netball, it's England Super League, Prem 1, 2, 3, regional 1, 2, 3, then local league. So that's how it kind of works. So I always had to go up the ranks. So first of all, I got into regional, then I had to get into Prem, then I was in Prem 1. And in Prem 1, the Super League and England girls, because England and Super League cross over, they they use those games as training games. So you play against England players all the time. So being in that Prem 1 division for me with any club was all I needed to do if I hadn't made England, because I'm still playing against them. So I'm still checking my level. I'm still making sure I'm relevant. I'm still making sure I'm good enough. And I could still tick those achievement boxes. So I up until a year ago, I was still playing Prem 1. I've now had to pull back on a few things. But so still ticking that box, even at my age, is proving everyone wrong. So people that said, you're not good enough, you're never going to make England, I never ever went back to them and go, told you so. But I know that if you see what I'm doing now, I know that the comfort's there. It was all about the feeling I had inside over saying it out loud,
Yeah.
but I'm more than comfortable to say it out loud as well. But yeah, so my actual coach was one of the England coaches that was my club coach. So I was getting the best training, and I moved to her from another club because I had to be the best. And everyone was like, oh, you're
Yeah.
not good enough to be in her club. And I was like, and when I joined her club, it's about loyalty and commitment. So she put me, even though I was a standard for one of her top teams, she actually put me in like her fourth team. And I had a year of uncomfortableness, crying after every game, having to humble myself, having to be careful what I say, not mock others, work with a team that weren't quite my standard, but question my own ability, question why am I here? Maybe I'm not good enough. I went through a whole
Yeah.
season of that before she then
Yeah.
rewarded me with, right, now you're skipping to the top team because you are good enough, but I want to see loyalty. And she taught me a lot of lessons through that. And I used to have to bite my lip and not say anything because she punished us. She was very old school. She is really old school. She's still around. If I questioned why am I on the bench or why am I not in that team, she'd punish you more. You won't.
Yeah.
That's not the way to get there. So I learned how to not answer back, to accept what the fate was, but to work hard to get there.
Yeah. And I guess that sounds a little bit like regulating that emotion, that
Yes,
knee-jerk react, not knee-jerk, the gut react instinct to want to
instant.
call it out or respond to it. And that was something that you had to continue to control.
Yeah, absolutely. I work really well with feedback. So with her, I used her to my advantage, where she was really good at telling me everything I'm not good at. You never got
Yeah.
well done unless you absolutely smashed it. And there was a game where I came off and she was like, surprised. It's the best I've ever seen you play. Danny, do more of that. And before that, it was, you need to do this, change your footwork, do this, do that. And it'd be like an overwhelming, but it
Yeah.
was worth it. And that was the same way my dad treated me, where he'd never
Hmm.
say, well done, high five, or you've done something amazing until you really got there. So it made
Yeah.
that triumph so much more worthwhile when I got there. And I was willing to do the work knowing that that would eventually come. So with her, she
Mm-hmm.
told me, because I went to university, met boys and alcohol, and slacked a little bit with my training or netball or whatever. She said to me, "You'll never make England." And that moment for me, I relived the mum moment, and it cut
Yeah.
deep. And I thought to myself, no, it's on the goals list. I'm still doing my goals list. It's on there because I know I'm
Yeah.
proactively doing the right things. So I thought, here we go. So who do you think's the best centre, which was my position? She'd tell me. So then I'd be like, what can they do that I can't do? She'd tell me. So I'd go and work on that. And then I'd
Yeah.
say, what are my strengths? Because then I used to think I can't lose my strengths. So I'd work really hard on my strengths as well as my weaknesses. But this
Yeah.
is where, all that time and effort that other people don't do, I generally do. I will go home and
Mm.
pick up the ball. Even to this day, me and my son practice passing, rugby, netball. I have to
Yeah.
redo it because I can't go into a game and do those things wrong.
Mm.
But yeah, so she told me I had to leave her club because my role in her club ended up being helping
Mm.
others, as opposed to, because she had made a decision I wasn't going to make England. So she
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
me play for the fourth team, third team, and the second team on a Saturday, and then on the Sunday I'd play in her top team in the Prem team. So I'd
Hmm.
never say no because I couldn't, because I didn't want to lose that opportunity.
So, but balancing that, because there you're in an environment. Well, it sounds like some of that was at uni, not necessarily, but you're
An
still
outsider, yeah,
doing netball uni sales, right?
yeah,
Funding your life and keeping this going. And did you, we talk about this progress, this marginal gains. To what extent were you feeling that whilst you were balancing this part of your career? Did you feel you were moving forward in
yeah.
in in all aspects?
Yes, because don't forget, in my mind, if it's on my list and at the end of the year, if I can't prove that I've done enough to move towards the goal, I'm not allowed to roll it
Yeah.
over. I have to accept that I'm not going to do it.
Mm.
There have been things on my list where I've gone, I completely forgot it was on the list, but it clearly wasn't important. So I cannot roll it
Yeah.
over. I can come back to it in a few years and it can go back on the list for an achievement. But the England netball one was always there because I was always working hard. Everything I did, the
Mhm.
training with my brother, going to the
Yeah.
gym, all those things was always moving me forward. So I confidently every year knew I can roll that over because I'm getting closer, I'm getting closer. And I did.
How old were you when you made your debut?
So I don't tell anyone my age. So I will tell you,
What year did you make your debut? Yeah.
I made my debut in 2013 and I stayed in the
Right.
setup for 4 years.
Hmm.
So how England works is you have to be invited to trial or you have to be seen. Um,
Yeah.
So you can't just find out when they are and turn up. It never used to work like that. I don't know how it is now necessarily. And then you trial and you make the squad, but you do camps, so 1 week camps sporadic across the year, and then you go on tour. So it was always a tournament. So we travelled to South Africa a couple of times, and you go on tour for 2 weeks solid. So you have to stop your whole life, go on tour, perform, and then come back.
How does that work? I mean,
Hard.
people are listening. It's like, yeah, dual careers. One lady quit a job, full stop, because she could not get the flexibility. What did you do?
When I was playing for England, I worked for a hotel group that were unreal. They sponsored me, so they paid for my flights to go.
Right.
And they gave me paid leave as well. They were just really, really supportive of everything I did because I was a worker. I was very successful in their business. I was a regional trainer at the time, and I was all about results. And I did my time. Like I'd work weekends for them. It's hotels, so you could stay up and down the country. I did
Mm.
more than enough hours that when I came to them and said, "Look, this has happened," they were elated for me and they wanted to
Yeah.
help me. So when I went on tour for 15 days that time, the hardest thing was my child. So the first time I went on tour, he was 3 and I'd never, ever spent time away
Right.
from him. And there was juggling
Yeah.
of guilt and ambition. It was like, I went through a really guilt stage
Yeah.
of how can I do this to him? And every night I phoned him every night that I was on tour, and he cried every night. I did this thing where I bought a present for every night I was away, because I used to do bedtime. It was a bedtime routine I used to love. Even if I worked long hours, I'd always be there for bedtime. So this was the first time for his routine was messed up and I wasn't going to be there. And, his grandparents and his dad had to step in. Well, his dad was always there, but he missed me and we were very close. So I'd buy him a present and then I'd phone him each night and he'd open whatever present it was. So smelly felt tip pens or
Yeah.
whatever it was. But
Yes.
I'd write him
Yeah.
a riddle on the top and he'd read the riddle and we'd spend the conversation talking about, so that we didn't focus on crying. We'd talk about
Yeah.
what does he guess what the present is from the riddle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was for me, that putting the phone down, I'd cry, he'd cry while we're on the phone, I'd put the phone down, I'd cry for half an hour or so while I was
Yeah.
on tour, before then I'd switch back into athlete mode. So for
Yeah.
me, that was harder than juggling the work and everything else, and the sleep
Yeah.
and the preparation. I wanted all those things, so I made them happen.
Yes. When did you know netball was going to come to an end, at least for England at that level?
I was on tour and I tore my ACL. I went up for an inception, came down. We all landed on my one leg, and my knee dislocated.
Yeah.
And I couldn't finish the tournament. So I spent the end of the tournament crying, upset, seeing doctors, trying to pretend it wasn't the case. And when I got back,
Yeah.
so I'll say this because it won't be just my opinion, but the netball world is very ageist. And when you have an injury, people assume, especially ACL, which is really common in lots of sports, but very common in netball and female sport.
Yes, I'm going to go with the latter.
Yeah.
It's very common, but very common in female sports.
Yeah.
Where
It
you're
happens a
moving
lot in
around.
rugby, I've found out, because I've done my ACL since I started rugby as well. But anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
I tore my
Football
ACL.
as well.
Yeah. I came back and that was it. I retried for the England camp, and I wasn't even looking, even though I tried really. I came back fully fit. All the umpire, I remember an umpire coming over going, "You've done it again. I can't believe you've come back from such a tragic incident. We didn't think we'd see you again." Everyone thought I was in, and I got an email saying my feedback was, "You're not right this time," and I never got back in. It wasn't enough. It was frustrating feedback because it wasn't feedback that I could work with, but
Yes.
there must have been another reason.
Frustration, that's an emotion. How else did you feel at that point? Because that wasn't your decision. That was
It
taken away
wasn't.
from you.
It was really tough. It took me it probably took me a really long time to get over it, but I used other things. So remaining in Prem 1 was more important to me then, or playing for a team. So I have played, if you ask anyone, I stood with my old coach, this same lady, just a few weeks back, and she said, "You're wearing a different netball dress again, Danny. Like, how many teams can you play for in your lifetime?" And we stood and counted. I've played for 11 different netball teams, whereas everyone else will stay with a team until the end. And I think to myself, confidently, I'm happy to say that, because everyone's like, "Who are you playing for this week?" And I will never say no to a game. I've played for many teams, more than 11, but 11 substantial teams at that high level. And I moved, if I thought, as soon as they find out my age, they treat me differently, or they assume I can't play or perform at a certain level, or I can't play against a certain England player or whatever.
Yes.
For me, it's like, forget your opinion of me, put me out there. And if I don't perform, bench me. And I'm accepting, and I've been on the bench, I'm accepting of being on the bench if I know I'm not performing or it's not right for the team that day. I'm not accepting of being on the bench because of my age or because my face doesn't fit or there's a new player coming through that we need to give time to. And I have to I've gone through that consistently for many years now. Again, I know that loads of people will laugh at me for saying this because netball world, they're really judgy. I know I could have made England for a lot longer if it wasn't for age, the supposed injury that you can never come back from, that I've come back from twice. And if my club dropped me to a lower level, again, you're not good enough because you're not in the Prem 1 anymore. It's kind of.
I mean, it is interesting to hear, that age is nothing but a number, but in this instance, it feels like there's a policy or something that's certainly written around age. But that being said, you got that frustration, you're annoyed at the powers that be. I'm still waiting for an oval ball to come in here at some point. Right.
Okay. I forgot
Where
about.
did that come from?
Um, so the joke goes, I'm mixed race. I have dual heritage, Jamaican and English. And when I made England, my Jamaican family are the most supportive. You know, I don't see them as often, but when you speak to them, it's like you've never been away from them. Everything's
Yeah.
about values, loyalty, family first. It doesn't matter how many times you haven't seen each other. Anything a family member asks you, you do that over anything else. It's just, I'm trying to explain our culture, I guess.
Yeah.
But when I played for England, the phone call from, you know, my grandfather and my great aunts, who I lived with my great aunt
Yeah.
for 4 or so years of my life, you see. So she kind of brought us up to a degree and taught us the culture. But when I had the conversation with them, it was fantastic, elated for me, so proud, you know, sent me gifts, money. They're backing me, but it was always a joke of, when are you going to play for your other country, Danny? You know, that kind of
Yeah.
conversation. I feel like the seed was planted with that conversation all those years ago when I made England, and I never let go
Yeah.
of it. Then I used to write it on the bottom of these goals list, and I removed it a few times. I used to write, how can I represent my company? Represent my country. I didn't know how.
Yes.
In my mind, I'm never going to play for Jamaica Netball. They're better than England standard. I don't live in
Hmm.
Jamaica. They'd never let foreigners into the squad either. So it was something that was really far out of reach again. And I just thought, I just had this thing that I used to write down of, what can I do to make my Jamaican family proud? And there was always going to be something. I never knew what it was going to be.
Yeah.
How it all came around, the rugby coach, my son is now 16. A few years ago, well, 3 years ago to be exact, he plays in like a really high setup. He's a very, very good rugby player, but he also looks way older than he is. So he's like 6'2",
Hmm.
you know, really deep voice. He kind of matured quite quickly. So when he plays, everyone thinks I mean, he went to a job interview the other day and they thought he was 24 and he's bloody 16. But anyway, um, he plays rugby, and the rugby setup is really good for pathway. So all the pathway coaches talk about different players, blah blah blah. And it just so happened the Jamaican coach was he's based in the UK, and he was looking for Jamaican heritage players to bring into the program. So he was
Yeah.
looking for these pathway players. So Harrison got mentioned, my son. Um, my number got passed on. He called me and started talking to me about Harrison, and he said, "Look, in our under 18 squad, we do play younger players up." But how old is he? Because I'm sure he's ready, blah, blah, blah. He didn't really know how old he was. I went, hang on a minute, he's
Yeah.
13, nearly 14. So Harrison is like one of the youngest in his academic age. His birthday's in June.
Yeah.
So all of his friends turn a year ahead of, you know, older, quicker than him.
Yeah.
So even though he'd seen him playing in this higher setup, he went, when does he should be turning 16 soon. I was like, nope, nearly 14. He's not the age you think he
Yeah.
is. And he was like, but he's 6 foot. I was like, yep, he is.
Yeah.
But and he was like, well, this is exciting. You know, he got very excited about him. His future
Yeah.
is going to be bright. Imagine where he's going to be when he does turn 16, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got on really well. We had this hour conversation about culture, heritage, everything.
Mm.
And he just asked me about what I did. And he said, we've got a young senior women's team. They're a very young setup. And our biggest problem is mental strength,
Yeah.
and confidence on the pitch. And he was like, I wonder if you could be part of this setup in some capacity. I'd love to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know, women's sport, tick. Helping other people achieve, tick. Helping a sport,
Yeah.
tick. You know, rugby, I only know because I watched my brother play and I played a little bit when I was younger, only with him, but didn't know the rules. Then I followed my son and had to learn the rules because I'm his biggest fan, coach, everything.
Yes.
So I was kind of like, yeah, I can help with fitness. You know, I'm big on training. I know how to achieve, blah, blah, blah. We went into lockdown. So I started going on Zoom calls with these girls and it was lovely. You know, our coaches started putting in fit training. You've got to do, you know, a Malcolm, a Bronco, all these rugby fitness things. And I was like, right. And I'm up against these 22-year-olds. There was a 19-year-old. They were all under 25, let's say. So I thought, here we go. I'm not going to be beaten by them. So we talked about my attitude. So I kind of played I'm the underdog. I'm coming in. I'm learning rugby.
Yeah.
I'm here to support. I'm here to help with mental strength and how we focus and attitude. But I'll get involved in everything you have to do. I'll do your training program. So we were in lockdown anyway. So I was like, right, what's the fit test? Right, I'll put my scores in first because the coach was like, they're too scared to put it in the group. They're too scared to share it. So I'd put mine in. So then all the girls put theirs in. So I was like, oh, she's at this. She's done this better than me, blah, blah, blah. So then it was like, right, I've got to train. I've got to get up at 6. I've got to do a Bronco every Monday because I've got to beat everyone else on their Bronco time. So then it just started that whole process again for me. we got to the end of lockdown and we were selecting the squad for the first game after lockdown. I say we, the coaches, I was just there as moral support and helped with the analytics of game plan, strategy. And we're on this Zoom call where we're all muted, and they named the squad and they named me. So I was like, I sat there and I thought, well, we can't talk. I can't unmute myself. They'd locked us. And then they were like, girls, we're going to speak to you one-on-one for your one-to-ones now. And then the next call is about planning. So we're off the call. So I'm redialing my coach, which everyone's probably trying to call him at the same time. Pick up the phone. So he phoned me and he just laughs. He's so funny. Ha, ha, ha. Daddy, I know why you're calling me. And I was like, right, I never said I'd play rugby. You can't put me in the squad. I've not really, we've been in lockdown. I've done the skills. I've played for fun. But, this is an international squad, blah, 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 blah. Then he went, right, Danny, well, we're going to the Bahamas. Right, okay, I'm in.
I'm there, Bahamas. I'm with you.
Yeah. It was his conversation. He'd seen me play netball. He knew what I was capable of. Netball has transitioned into rugby sevens. And it was sevens, sorry, I should have mentioned that. So he was like, he had this conversation with me and convinced me. He was just like, you can do this, you can do that. And more importantly, we need you for the squad. Without you, where's the confidence coming from? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I went out to the Bahamas for my first tour. I was co-captain with this other young girl who'd been captain previous matches, tournaments. And it was the most pivotal time of my life. I loved every minute. I sat on the beach at the end of this tour. We made history for Jamaica. I wore the jersey for the first time. I took the picture. I sent it to the whole family. We've got a WhatsApp group that the family talk on regularly. We do a Sunday call now because of this. The emotion was times 10 for the England one because of where I'm at, what it meant, how it felt. The fact that I didn't believe, I didn't think I'd ever get that, and I didn't know where it would be, and it came out of nowhere. I'm playing a new sport that I never knew, I never would have put on my goals list, but I'm playing a new sport and I've had to learn it. I'm playing internationally, but hang on a minute, I'm now playing for that other country that I never ever believed I'd get to do. So you can imagine that adrenaline feeling I talked to you about, that happiness that I find, it was just so overwhelming. I sat on this beach watching the sunset on my own one morning in the Bahamas. It sounds surreal saying it. How lucky am I? And I reflected on my entire life. I cried. I just thought, what am I doing? I was in a job at the time that I didn't enjoy, and I was doing everything for somebody else. And I had a bit of a realization moment with that. And then I thought, I'm consciously now, I want to pursue rugby. I want to be the best. I want to be the best for this country. I want to actually put Jamaica on the map. I want to say that I was part of the growth for Jamaica. And now I'm going to take it even more serious than I ever have. It's not just about supporting and helping the girls. It was about going back into my whole process of, how do I improve as a player? How am I now going to be someone that's dangerous on a rugby pitch? How am I going to do that? What's my process? One, I need to leave my job. And I came back and left my job, and I've carried on playing for rugby. And to pursue other things. So
I mean, to me, that's wonderful. Such a fascinating way to find that. I know this is all about second wind, but likewise in sport, because your role was different. You were still in sport, and it just sort of really talks about. I talk a lot actually about finding the field, finding where you think you're going to thrive. And then the role will sort itself out, but getting that environment first.
Yeah.
And that's what you did, right? You got on there. You were there about mental toughness. And that was the role. But then that moved from an off-field perspective, or at least the coach then thought, well, get on the field and do that for them. Play that role.
Yeah. And it was one of the games out there we played against. The best team we played against was Canada in this tournament, and we were trying to qualify for the next tournament. All the teams we beat, except for Canada, as you can imagine, they're on another scale. But getting on the pitch with Canada, it for me was full of. I'd already researched every player. I knew the names of the girls in front of me. I couldn't wait for one of them to tackle me. Can you believe? I thought, wait till she tackles me. I wonder what it feels like. I wonder what her technique is. It was all these things going on. I was so excited. When I got on the pitch, I didn't start that game. The other girls did. But when my coach sent me out, Danny, get out there, pull them together. I got out there. All of a sudden, we're playing sevens, there's 7 of us. We had 4 yellow cards because we'd done that many infringements. There were 3 of us left on the pitch. And I remember looking to the 2 girls either side of me and went, right, what's the plan, girls? And the one girl went, well, there's 3 of us versus 7, and there's not much of a plan, Danny, just run. So I was like, but I still had this smile on my face, and I was just elated. It was Canada running at me, and they obviously scored many tries, but tackling one of these players, being on the same pitch, I came off and everyone was sad and I was elated. I was like, I just touched a Canada rugby player and tackled him, It was all those kind of feelings. And it was, again, I went straight into, what am I learning from this? What amazing experience. And I remember sitting in our bedroom, because we always have a party on the last night with all the girls, and we've really bonded, and it's emotional because they're going back to Canada, they're going back to Jamaica, all the girls are from everywhere, Dubai, and us in the UK. We're all leaving each other until the next tournament, and if we don't get selected, we may never see each other again. It's all that kind of emotion. But we sit, and I'm like Mother Hen, where I sit there and we talk about, this is what I got from this tournament. Here's how I feel, and we get all emotional, and everybody's drive for being there is different. They're all at different stages in their life, so I think it's beautiful to hear their story. They all know I'm older; they don't actually know my age. So there is an element of respect when I speak, and they listen to me. I stop all the arguments and I do the reasoning. But when we have that moment at the end of tour, it's beautiful, where I just want to be with these girls forever, and bring them home and help them. But again, it's one of those moments that you can't replicate, and you want it again and again, and you only get it in a tour scenario. I only got it when I was in England. I only get it now when I'm away with Jamaica, and I want it again and again. And you hunt for it, you work hard for it,
So at some point, you won't be on tour as a player, right? What thought have you put into how you'll get that same happiness feeling, success feeling?
Yeah.
What thought have you put into how you're going to get that once you athletically retire?
Yeah. So I'm at a point in my life where as soon as I have an injury, everyone tells me you're not going back. And I've had it a few times. So I did my ACL in my second year of Jamaica, out on tour in San Salvador. I went to go for an interception, which my coach keeps telling me not to do. I hesitated. This girl had made a decision to tackle me. She came at me hard, and she popped my knee out, and it was dislocated. I popped it back in, knew it was my ACL because I'd done it before, but played on. I basically told everyone it was fine. It didn't hurt as much because the pain goes after the tear as such. And I carried on playing for the rest of the day and convinced myself and everyone that it wasn't my ACL. The next day it was massive, had an MRI, it was my ACL. So I cried the rest of that tour because I was out after the second day, and I'd worked 6 months for that tour, and it was my time. I'm getting better, don't forget. I'm still new to this sport. Everyone else has been playing since the age of 6. I've only played the last few years. I thought that was going to be my tour to put me on the map and people to start really respect me as a rugby player, not just Danielle from Netball who can do rugby. And family, everyone said, this is obviously the end. You're not going to come back from this. Last time it took me 6 months against the odds to come back from an ACL reconstruction. So I go through that emotion a lot with injury. I actually, an American doctor, fantastic guy, reached out to me after the tour, had seen me on tour and said, I don't want you to have the op, you'll heal. And I did. I healed my ACL after 5 months and went straight back. So that's why I'm still playing now. So I've got a healed ACL and a reconstructed. No one believes me, but I didn't have an op. I don't know how I did it. That probably is my superpower. I actually have a really rare blood type that's heals quicker than the average as well, which I found out because of this. Really weird. So maybe that's
literally is a superpower.
Yeah,
that is one of those things.
The doctor actually.
Well, that's both. Physical healing, I guess, comes through, but then that probably may also go feed up to the brain very quickly for your emotional regulation.
But you're right. It's that thought process now of the fear. So I've gone through it with 2 ACL injuries and obviously being dropped for my age. I trialed for a Super League squad, and they bluntly told me, we're taking the 4 younger girls over you. So I've had to go through this a few times and felt that, and kind of questioned if that was the rest of my life, how am I going to deal with it? Because at the moment I've found something to get me out of the rut, to strive for and achieved again. But I live in constant fear, I guess, of what happens if I do get injured and I get taken out early, or what's going to happen when I'm not good enough, or I'm not selected anymore. And I didn't get selected after the ACL in Jamaica. I've missed 3 tours and it broke my heart. I've just been reselected, and I go out to Jamaica at the end of May. So I've only just got back in.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Cannot wait. I don't know, because I feel like I feel like it'll be depression a dip because I've
Hmm.
entered it a few times and quickly pulled myself out. I feel like I've dipped my toes in, but not actually fallen into it
Yeah.
completely. So
Hmm.
this is why this is why I'm probably doing this podcast. This is why I go out to schools and universities and corporate events and I talk and I tell that story that kills me to say, because
Hmm.
I feel like I keep asking myself, what's my purpose in life? Because I get asked the question, would I have changed? Wow, sorry. Would I have changed my childhood? And the answer is no. And I'll tell you for why. I remember being happy. If I described my childhood without telling you that story, I loved every minute. I can tell you
Hmm.
so many happy memories, and the bad ones are there, but I got through them. I got over them,
Yeah.
and the success and the happiness and the fun stuff was way better than any of those things, or more appreciated by my mind, I guess. So,
Yeah.
would I change anything? No, I wouldn't. Yes, I would love a strong relationship with my mother. Yes, I would love for that all to, excuse me, sorry. Yes, I would love to have a mum like everyone else that takes you shopping, or I've got a friend who goes on holiday and her mum buys her bread and milk. So she gets back on a day of holiday. Her house is clean, her beds have got fresh sheets, and she's got a little care package of chocolate and bread and milk.
What?
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
No, no, it's okay. No one has.
Not everyone does
Only
that.
one person has that mum. Okay, that's it. Okay, don't worry about that. That's fine.
Okay, it's okay. I'm looking for things that aren't there then. But yeah, no, I want to go to lunch with my mum and have a conversation about what I'm doing in my life, and
Yeah.
I want to hear what my mum's doing and what life's like being who
Hmm.
she is now. But she's no longer an alcoholic, but we don't have a very close relationship, and she has other mental health problems because of what she went
Hmm.
through. Um, and she's a different person to me, so I'm struggling to warm to the non-alcoholic person because that's a completely different personality.
Hmm.
So I think to myself, even though it's difficult to talk about, if there's one other person that went through something similar or worse, because I don't even think that was bad, that was my normal. And to me, it wasn't bad until I
Hmm.
realized later that I could have had a different life or I could have had a perfect life that other
Yeah.
people have. You know, I just think if
Yeah.
I share my story and someone can relate to it and it helps them believe in
Yeah.
themselves, go for
Hmm.
something that they've put off, achieve something that they thought they never could have, I've
Yes.
fulfilled my purpose in life.
Yes. It's fascinating. I mean, I get it, and it's interesting because I will always talk about that's what's important is being vulnerable, understanding your purpose, finding your purpose, and living to it. Right, putting that and living to it. I think the bit I hear is you you have broken down different parts of your life into um, small pieces of paper that you put under your mattress that give you this sense of achievement and sense of progress as you move forward.
Yeah,
Um, and I wonder what will that be when you stop playing, right? How how are those ticks going to change? Because you're not going to have one. Perhaps you're not going to have one that is represent your country or do something along those lines.
yeah.
Or maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it's masters. Maybe it's something else. But it's what is that sense of progress going to be for you? And
Yeah,
that I find interesting.
I think I'm trying to avoid having the conversation with myself because I know the day's going to come, but I keep thinking, while it's not here, enjoy what you've got. Appreciate every day because it's going to
Yeah,
come. And I know I can't stop
yeah,
the inevitable. What I'm trying to do, I think, at the moment, I'm in this place where I'm trying to bridge the gap. So I'm trying to give what I think I've got. I'm trying to give whatever this superpower is to other people because
yeah,
I'm a massive believer in with my businesses and everything. I say this all the time. Competitors are there to only make you better, and the world is big enough for us all to do the same things if we wanted to and compete against each other. You know, in
yeah,
my industry of personalized dog wear, there are loads of competitors, but there's enough room for all of us and there's enough buyers for all of us to be in that
yeah,
market. I feel the same about everything else I do. So, like I said, I feel like I'm looking for that purpose, or I'm kind of defining that purpose as whatever this superpower is, whatever name I eventually give it, which I don't know.
mhm,
I want to make sure that I've shared it with the rest of the world so that when I'm gone, there is a legacy. I don't know why I get emotional about that. I think my biggest fear in life is death, but when I'm gone, I want to make sure that everyone said she was worthy.
mhm.
I want people, even if it's just, Joe Blogs up the road, not being famous as such. I just want to leave something behind that someone goes, Do you remember that girl, Danielle? She did all of this against the odds. If she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've got to. So when I go to these schools, these primary schools, it's about kids believing in themselves. When I go to secondary schools and universities, it's about sharing that superpower and having the belief from a young age, or fixing it now at whatever age it may be. So I want to continue doing that. And I know I'll definitely go into coaching, because I feel like I can live my sport through other people, or find that
Yeah.
little me in somebody else and help them navigate what or achieve what I've done with that extra support. So I know, I feel like it will be. But again, coaching, I started thinking about it. If someone went, you can come and coach at our club, it has to be a certain level of player. It has to be at a certain level. So again, I'm already like, maybe I'll coach the Jamaican netball team, one day, or the Jamaican rugby team. Do you know what I mean? It's that level that I'm already starting to think about.
Yeah.
But I've got my son. My son's going through a journey where I question, am I good enough? Am I doing what I need to do? Because I don't want to change my childhood, because I know that that's what's made me who I am. That's what's made this mindset, this superpower that I've got. So if you
Yeah.
change it, would I be able to do what I do? Would I have been successful? I can't answer that, but I don't want to change it. But I made a promise when I brought a child into this world that they would have everything, and I don't care what anyone says, he will never want for anything. I will always be there for him, and he'll have all the emotional support that I know I didn't have myself, because I chose to bring him into the world. So I know very much that, I'm mocked for wrapping him up in cotton wool, or, picking up the pieces, or going through emotions with him, because I don't want him to feel like he hasn't got someone to support him, or I want him to believe in himself. And actually, I don't think it helped him for so long, and I've had to pull back a little bit, because I keep thinking, how is he going to find his trigger, as I call it? My trigger is that motion, that whole situation I took him through. That's what my superpower is, really. It's what gets me through, finds the solution, and gets me to that next level. What's his? And I overthink what is his going to be, because I'm there fixing it all for him. But we had a moment the other day. I'll quickly tell you the story. We had a moment the other day, well, a few weeks back, where a kid who's from the local area was in one of my presentations, and I got emotional and explained it, and he came up to me and said, I know you, son, and I think so highly of you. I was really inspired, and thank you. And it was a lovely moment. But he mentioned it to my son. So my son came to me, and he came home and said, Mum, I know kind of what you do, but what is it that you're saying to everyone? Because this is what this boy said to me. And he said, I don't understand. And we spent 5 or 6 hours where I told him some home truths, I guess, about how it was brought up, some horrible bits about how my mum was brought up and why I think she's the way she is. And I told him this fear. I told him that I fear he hasn't got the trigger or the appreciation, I guess, to push himself far enough. But his goal and ambition is to play rugby for Jamaica and to play rugby for England. He wants them both, if not, one or the other. And I said to him, I always fear that you're not going to make it just because I've done this for you. And what is that? What's that thing you're avoiding so much, that you'll work hard enough? And his response, excuse me, Jesus, I didn't think I'd get upset. His response was, you're sorry, Jesus, this is a happy thing, His response was,
I'm happy for you. Come on, I'll show you the happy face. It'll keep coming.
Sorry, I don't need to cry. His response was, let me get it out. Mum, you're more than enough. If I know that you're proud of me, it's enough for me to never give up. It's enough for me to work hard when it gets tough. It's enough for me to never stop trying. It's enough for me to want that goal bad enough. He said, because I want to make you proud. And obviously I'm very proud of him, and I said that to him. But for him now, he's got to achieve what I've achieved. He's like, you've made it international. I've got to do that. And he wants to do it, because I said to him, don't do it because I have. He said, Mum, I want it more than anything. He said, but I have got the fear of not making you proud, the fear of not doing as well as you did. And my mum's an international player, and he gets it tough. People say, oh, he is in the Jamaica setup for his own merit because he is good enough. And don't forget, they came for him first. But he gets the whispers of, well, your mum's international, your mum plays for Jamaica, no wonder you're in it. But actually, he's a better rugby player than me. He's been playing for longer. We go in the garden and he teaches me how to play rugby. He fixes my skill set. He's just taught me how to kick with purpose, with intent, with skill. and and it's our bond. But anyway, that moment for me, kind of again, I thought, wow, I'm hunting for this
Yeah.
purpose to leave this legacy, but actually, I feel like I've done it. You know,
Yeah.
that for me, if I died tomorrow, I
Hmm.
feel like I've done that for him, or
Yes.
I've done enough for him. So,
Yeah.
so sorry to get upset. It's a wonderful thing. It really is. I don't know why I get
It
upset.
is. It is a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful thing. And I think, well, for him to respond in that way, certainly for the maturity that, or the age he is, certainly demonstrates a maturity, and certainly I guess the experiences that he's had to get him to that point. That to me sounds like a wonderful young man. But look, I'm now way conscious of the time, and
Yeah.
I've
Sorry.
loved this conversation. Mainly because of the certainly the story, but then how it shaped the way you see sport and the way that you've certainly thrived through the businesses. A couple of questions to round us out in some respects, but I'm interested in the technical aspect. You run a business, right?
Three.
You've been striving. Yeah, you run businesses.
Yes.
Yeah, and and you said you're on the beach, Barbados, Bahamas.
Bahamas.
Sorry, in
Sorry. Yeah.
Bahamas.
Bahamas.
Yeah, in Bahamas. Sunset. You were doing a job. You're doing it for someone else. You didn't like that. Feels like you came back. You left. You started running businesses, right? I describe what you have as a portfolio. You have this portfolio of businesses that enables you to probably explore and find success in the elements that you love without a lot of the rubbish you hate.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me, when you were thinking of these businesses, how did you say to yourself, what is that motivation? What is that drive to do it yourself?
It's the whole thing of proving it to myself that I can do it and I'm worthy. It kind of all goes back to that. So I've always worked in other people's businesses and made them a lot of money. The last guy I worked for, multi-millionaire, he used to buy businesses and bring them in and say, write me a strategy, make it successful. That's your job, as well as run the business we were in, the embroidery business. And I did it and I loved it because it was his money. I could take the risk and I found it easy because, there's no real fear, is
Yeah.
that it's his money. He also used to say things like, well, I'm a multimillionaire. If you fail, I'm still a multimillionaire. It's all on you. So again, it was that whole trigger from, which is why I left. It's a whole trigger from that childhood again that just kept eating up inside of me. I had to keep proving myself. But I got to a point where I was like, on that beach in Bahamas, why am I proving myself? I've already ticked this box so many times in the businesses I was managing director in the healthcare business, everything that I've worked in, and the hotel business. I'd already done all these things. So I thought, now the only thing I haven't done is done it for myself and really given myself the reward, because it's always for someone else. So that was it. I thought I can do this and I'm going to do it. And it was a big risk. I stood with my other half and I said, you're not going to like this, but I'm leaving my job. And he went, what? I said, I've got no job to go to, but here's my plan. I wrote a business plan. I presented it to him and my dad, who's my worst critic, and will always give me some blunt truths. And I know I'm doing things right if he agrees. And I presented it to them. And obviously there was loads of fear, and it was our life savings I've put into this business that still hasn't paid us back yet, but should do. And he was just really supportive. He said, I think this is insane, but you've done it before. You've always proved it to me. And he said, I guess all I can do is say, you're not happy. I don't want you to be unhappy. I believe in you. Go for it. And he has. But it's not been easy. I've gone from having six-figure salary and bonuses and not worried about money, and had ridiculous amounts each month. And I'm only saying that to emphasize the point of, I've gone to a point where I had nothing in the bank, either of us. I'm the main breadwinner. So once I moved away from work, his role isn't one where you can progress and get more salary. It's government. So he can't improve. He can't go, right, I'm going to get a promotion and get more money. This is what we get. So we've had to pull back, make setbacks, sell things, and then me get every day, wake up and still be driven to drive these businesses with the belief that I'm now 3 years down the line and it was going to work. So it's not been easy, but I told you this. I make a decision and it's on the list. It's on the goals list. I fold up and now it's on a shelf in my office. That's where I
I
am
was
now.
thinking it must be up there because you were looking up there. I was like, it
I
must be up
did
there now,
a couple of times.
unless you're in a thingy bed. But yes,
No,
captain or
it's
whatever.
on a shelf. It's on a shelf with my medal. It's up
Yeah,
there. So it's on a shelf with the
yes,
medal.
yeah,
So it's in the room where I make things happen. This is where I do the work. This is where I make the phone
hmm
calls. This is where I do the podcast.
yeah,
And it's that whole mindset. It's on the list. I've got to do
yeah,
it, and I'm gonna work till it happens. So,
yeah. Wonderful. So two questions left. One, what's next?
I don't know. Jamaican saying, and I think it's a Jamaican saying, so I got it from my aunt. She always says to me, "What is meant for you won't pass you by." And so when I
Hmm.
go through tough times, I say that out loud. And when I want something bad enough, I always think back to that. Like, if it's meant to be, it's all going to happen. And so a lot of things at the moment, because I feel like I'm giving out to the world, the universe, and I'm doing a lot
Yeah,
proactively. So I'm coaching at our local rugby club. I'm playing in Bristol at my rugby club. I'm training for Jamaica. I'm about to go out on tour to Jamaica. I'm supporting my son and driving him everywhere to get to all his international trials and
yeah,
everything, and his games. I'm putting loads of effort into my two companies. I'm going out in my business consulting and fixing other people's businesses. All of these things I'm giving out, I literally keep going through these moments where something comes back to me. So the most recent one
hmm
where I feel like I'm in this bubble at the moment where I do all of those things and then things just happen and I'm like, that's what I wanted, thank God. And the one was, being reselected for this game. So I'm actually playing
yeah.
15s. The first time, it'll be my first cap
Okay.
to play
Yeah.
15s
hmm
for Jamaica in Jamaica. So I'm going home. I'm going back to my
Yeah,
country,
yeah,
one of my countries,
yeah.
where my family will be to get my first cap for 15s. And my grandfather sadly
Wonderful.
passed away a year and a half ago during
Hmm.
this process. So again, when I talk about that feeling I get, it's been amplified yet again. So not only now am I
Hmm.
playing for my second country, which is I never thought would happen, I'm playing in the country for my family
Yeah.
and for my grandfather now, who was the first one to say, "When will you ever do anything for Jamaica?" It is for him. It is all for him, and in his name, and with my
Yeah.
family out there. So I feel like I'm on cloud nine. How lucky am I at my age to be given these
Yeah.
opportunities all the time? And I say, look, I don't always believe it's luck because I do work hard. I do,
Yeah.
put myself through hell. The training that I don't want
Hmm.
to do, put myself out of my comfort zone, the
Yes.
competitions that I know I'm not going to achieve, all these things
Yeah.
for those ultimate goals. Yeah, but what's next? I don't know, but I'm loving where I am right now. Um, I want those businesses to be super successful. I want to keep giving back. I need to find a name for my superpower so that I can describe
Yes.
it better and feel confident in talking about it. Because even saying superpower just then, I cringe a little bit because there are the friends, I call them friends, but they're the ones that are judgy. And I know that when I say some of these
Yeah.
things in front of them, they only see netball Danny, they don't see rugby Danny, they don't see business Danny.
Hmm.
And, you
Yeah.
know, they don't get the whole me, which on this
Hmm.
podcast, I guess I've given an element of netball Danny, rugby Danny, and me, business Danny.
That's right. Yeah.
And not
Which is
everybody
great.
gets that. And that's the unique thing I'm giving on these motivational talks in the schools, in the businesses.
Yeah.
And that for me is a vulnerable place to be,
Hmm.
but also maybe the
Yeah.
superpower.
It could well be. And look, thanks for quite simply being open on this. And I'm enjoying our conversation. And the last question really is for the for that next crop of players, athletes coming through who are listening to this, have watched, have joined us on this journey, and they're thinking, well, how do I find my second wind? How am I going to keep on going? How am I going to keep getting those marginal gains? What success would you give? Oh, sorry. What advice, what guidance, based on your experience, would you give to them to, well, quite simply, to best prepare for what might come next for them?
Wow. That's a really great question. There's a huge responsibility in this answer. um, do you know what? When I meet these kids, when I do this talk, ultimately I say to them, if you want something bad enough, you can have it, and never forget that. And I talk about a formula to success when I'm in these presentations because I try and break down this very large detailed story into something that they can take away. And I talk about my formula to success. And the formula to success is all about ability multiplied by effort, multiplied by attitude, can give you what you desire. So what I talk about in ability is about forever learning. I will never stop learning. Every day I've learned loads from you today in this conversation. I've learned loads by talking about my own journey again just today, because I have realization moments. I learn loads in every business scenario, talking to my son. I learn from everyone I meet, and that's what I love about people. That's what I love about the world. And if you're humble enough to learn from every experience and not think you know it all, I know a lot, and I know I'm very good at what I do. And I do go into businesses and dictate as a director or as the strategic person that they've brought in. But also, I'm standing there thinking, this guy's in this guy's business. He's set it up in a different way than I've ever done. His journey is different. I can actually learn loads from him because there's another way of doing something, because nobody's journey is the same. So I preach, you must learn every day. I'm learning, and I like to sit and think at the end of the day when I get into bed and I'm still talking to myself, what have I learned? So always learn. Effort isn't just about getting up and turning up to training. It's about, and I know it's cheesy, it is about doing the extra. It's about, I've promised myself, as soon as I got selected, I go outside and I do 50 passes with a ball on my left side, on my right side, 50 kicks. And they have to be kicks that actually make, with intention, get to the point I need it to in the run up to this tournament. Those are the things that I guarantee that other people won't be doing, because they'll take for granted their position, or they have already made the team, or they just think they're going to get in because of the training sessions they've been to. It's those little extra things. It's the research I do into someone else's business. It's going to spend time with someone that doesn't know me, because actually I'm there drawing all of their great things to learn from it, because I want to do what they're doing. That's what I'm talking about with effort, not just turning up to training and that you have to do. And then attitude. I talk about attitude all the time. You can have a bad attitude and you have a good attitude, and I have both of them at times. It depends what situation you're in and where you're at. But what I try and do is correct myself from the way I was brought up. So I was brought up very strict. No answering back. Swearing is only in situations where, I do swear, but not very often, because I don't think I need to use it. But I definitely wouldn't swear in front of my elders, in front of my parents, to this day, just because it's a respecting culture. So it's just, when I talk about attitude, I talk about what attitude I'm choosing to have in that moment, in that situation I'm in, on that netball court. What attitude do I need to have? And it will all depend on those around me and the situation I'm in. So if my role on that netball game or rugby game is to be the experienced one and to put the effort in, knowing that the other players around me are better than me, that's the role I'll take, and that's the attitude I have. And I have to sacrifice the glory hunting, or the interception that's going to give me the gravitas or the scoring of the try, because my job right then is to give the experience, give the motivation, and give the confidence to the others, and connect the team. But sometimes I can go on there, especially in netball now, where I find it a lot easier versus rugby. I can go on into a netball game and know I'm the strongest player, know they all rely on me to deliver my performance. So I'll focus on getting the interception, working till I can't breathe, knowing that I can sleep later, but I've got to burn myself out to deliver a performance for the rest of the team. So when I talk about attitude, forget I have a good attitude and a bad attitude. It's about having the right attitude in the right situation that you're in. And all those things together, I think, will give you what I hunt for, is the success, the happiness, the adrenaline.
Yeah, I love it. That recipe for success.
Recipe.
And yeah.
Still that recipe sounds better, yeah.
It's yours. There you go. It's a recipe for success. But I think it is. That's what you described. And the ingredients, we all understand the ingredients, and some of those we even apologized. Sometimes you just have to do the extras. It's what we know exists. It's like you put egg in it. Yeah, that's the ingredient. We all know what it takes, but whether or not you're prepared to go ahead and do it. So, look, I've just got to say, Danielle, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I've really appreciated your company, the stories, and certainly some of the insights as well. So thanks very much for joining me.
Well, thank you. It's been great to speak to you and to feel comfortable enough to talk about this. I thought I'd hold some stuff back, but I have given you a lot of raw, honest things there. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.